17 years ago, a young woman named Elise Morgan vanished from Houston on an entirely ordinary night, disappearing without a trace, leaving her family devastated and with unanswered questions. Authorities suspected her husband, who was also the last person with Elise before she vanished, of involvement, but with no body found and only very few leads to pursue. The investigation gradually stalled. Yet over all those years, Elise's loved ones and cold case investigators never gave up hope, clinging to the slim possibility that the truth was still buried somewhere. Then one day, while reviewing old data that had seemed meaningless, blurry security camera footage and forgotten files, they noticed a crucial detail that everyone had overlooked. A detail that would change the entire case and shock everyone involved in a way no one could have imagined. Before diving into this shocking story, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy the video, don't forget to subscribe. Houston, in 2009, entered the early days of March with damp, chilly weather. While the Energy Corridor area maintained the steady routine of a professional and discreet community. In that setting, Elise Morgan, 29 years old, was a familiar face, punctual, disciplined, and with such a stable schedule that everyone around her simply assumed Elise would always show up where and when expected. Every morning, she was at the gym by 5 a.m., then at the office before 8 a.m. In the evenings, she returned home along the same familiar route. It was precisely this regularity that made any deviation in her routine an easily noticeable red flag. On March 2, 2009, Elise left work in the evening as usual. The camera at the company lobby captured her walking out, looking tired but steady, carrying her familiar work bag. There was no sign of anything unusual. Elise got into her car, left the parking lot, and merged into the gradually thinning traffic. That was the last time anyone saw her. The next morning, March 3, the gym recorded that Elise did not show up for her regular workout time. This was completely out of character and prompted a familiar staff member to note the unusual absence. About 2 hours later, her company also noted that Elise had not arrived at work, had sent no email about being absent, and did not answer calls. At first, people assumed she had a personal issue, but the prolonged silence caused colleagues to grow concerned. By noon, a close coworker decided to drive to Elise's house to check. The house was silent, the door locked, with no sounds coming from inside. Elise's car was still parked in the garage. Unable to see her through the windows, the coworker continued calling, but the phone rang unanswered. Anxiety mounted when this person called Raymond Doyle, Elise's husband. But all they received was a brief reply that offered no clarity about where Elise might be. Afterward, the coworker contacted Elise's mother and sister. Both confirmed they had no idea where she was and had received no calls or messages from her since the previous evening. The prolonged absence, lack of contact, and Elise skipping 2 mandatory points in her daily routine made everyone realize the situation had gone beyond waiting. By late afternoon, with all attempts at contact yielding nothing and no sign of Elise anywhere, the coworkers returned to the house once more to check. The door remained unchanged from the morning, with no indication it had been opened or closed since the previous night, and everything inside stayed exactly as it was, as if time had frozen from the moment Elise returned home. The lingering silence in the house, combined with Elise being completely off the grid for over 16 hours, no calls, no messages, no appearances at any familiar locations, caused the last reassuring theories to collapse. At that point, the only remaining option was to notify the police. The report of Elise's disappearance was received by the Houston Police Department system in the late afternoon that same day, and within less than an hour, the case was assigned to a team from the Missing Persons Unit. When the patrol car pulled up in front of the house on Brook Hollow Drive, dusk had settled over the neighborhood, the fading light making the normally quiet scene feel heavier and more inexplicable. 2 investigators stepped out, verified the reporting party, recorded initial information, then approached the front door to request access and begin the standard safety check inside the residence. Once the door was opened, they moved through each room following protocol, living room, kitchen, hallway leading to the bedrooms, small home office at the back of the house. At each location, they made quick observations, noted the state of the space, and looked for signs that Elise might be somewhere inside needing medical help. However, the initial check showed the entire house completely empty, with no signs of Elise's recent presence beyond ordinary household items. No sounds, no open windows, no evidence of anything knocked over or moved unusually. The bed was neatly made in the way Elise always did it. The living room had nothing out of place. In the kitchen, the sink was clean, with no unfinished dishes. The overall feeling was that everything had been frozen since the previous evening, but there was no information confirming when or how Elise had left the house. After completing the procedural walkthrough, the investigators asked the reporting party to describe, in more detail, how Elise's disappearance was discovered, while also contacting Raymond Doyle to verify whether she might be somewhere else, without notifying anyone. The response they received was quite brief and provided no helpful additional information. This was noted in the report without judgment, as there was not yet any basis to suspect or rule out any factor. They checked the garage, confirming Elise's car remained in its spot, the engine completely cold, with no signs of use that morning. On the table near the door, Elise's keychain was placed in a small dish, and her personal items such as wallet, documents, and bank cards were found in a drawer near the entrance, consistent with the victim's habits. One investigator noted that frequently used areas remained clean and orderly. There was no strong chemical cleaning smell or evidence suggesting an incident had occurred inside the house. After a preliminary sweep with flashlights to look for anomalies, such as scuff marks, drag marks, or indentations on the wood floor, they observed nothing different from a normal living space. The team also recorded that only Elise's phone was missing from the house, a detail included in the report as a note on potential abnormality, but not yet sufficient to prove she left or was taken out. Since Elise was an adult with no history of mental illness, no pattern of sudden departures, and stable living conditions, the team assessed the case as meeting criteria to upgrade the file to Missing Person Level 2, meaning a disappearance with unusual factors, but no immediate confirmed indication of danger. They completed the scene report, photographed the main areas of the house per archiving protocol, and transferred all information into the system to officially open the missing person case number. Before leaving, the team explicitly noted in the report that Elise was not found in any area inside or around the house, that most essential daily living items of hers remained in place, and that there were no objective signs indicating Elise had left her residence on her own on the morning of March 3rd. These observations made the case impossible to explain as a simple random absence, but they also lacked sufficient grounds to determine criminal activity. After the initial scene report was completed and the file activated, the investigative team moved to the next step in the process, gathering statements and data from people and locations directly connected in order to establish the last confirmed timeline of Elise's appearance. The focus of this phase was placed on the period from late afternoon on March 2nd to the morning of March 3rd, when all traces of Elise's communication began to disappear. The investigators first contacted the HR department at Elise's company and received consistent confirmation that she left the office around 8 p.m. on March 2nd, matching the lobby camera footage showing Elise carrying her work bag, walking out, and heading toward the parking lot. From this, the investigators established 8 p.m. as the last time Elise was seen by an objective recording device. The next step was to verify Raymond Doyle's presence during the same time frame, since the husband was the person with the most likely contact with Elise that evening. Raymond stated he had been home since early evening, left the house briefly to take out the trash, and then returned, and afterward, the two had a normal dinner. He reported that Elise went into her separate home office to organize work documents while he watched television until around 10 p.m. before going to bed. The investigators recorded this statement, but also noted that most of the time points Raymond provided lacked objective corroboration, especially the movements between rooms and the time he claimed to have gone to sleep. When asked about the last time he saw Elise in the house, Raymond replied that he did not remember exactly, but believed she was still in the office, and he had no reason to think she had left. On the other hand, neighbor accounts provided a more detailed picture of indoor lighting activity during the same period. One resident across the street said the living room light stayed on until around 10 p.m. and then went off completely, while the office light at the back of the house remained on a bit longer before also going out fully, though this person could not pinpoint the exact time. Another neighbor in the same row reported the garage light coming on very briefly sometime after 11 p.m., but could not say why, and they heard nothing else except a faint sound like a door closing or something dropping inside the house. Both descriptions were recorded in the report as observational data without interpretive judgment. The team continued reviewing time elements related to Elise's and Raymond's phones, but as previously noted, only Raymond's phone was active during the night, while Elise's could not be determined because the device was not found. In the initial file, investigators clearly noted the gap between 8 p.m., when Elise left the company, and around 7 a.m. the next morning, when she was first recorded as not arriving at work, as a period lacking any verified data on Elise's movements. When cross-referencing Raymond's statement with neighbor light observations, some points showed slight discrepancies. The time Raymond said the living room light went off did not perfectly match the description from the house across the street, and the time he claimed to have gone to bed could not be verified by any objective means. However, these discrepancies were still not sufficient to conclude any specific irregularity, as both sides relied on memory and routine habits. The investigators compiled all data into a timeline: 8 p.m., Elise leaves company, approx. 8:20 p.m., Elise arrives home, logical estimate based on distance, approximately 10 p.m., living room light off, after 11 p.m., garage light on for a few seconds. Morning 3/3, Elise does not appear at gym, approximately 8:30 a.m. Elise does not appear at work, approximately 12 p.m. Coworker checks house, approximately 5 p.m. Police arrive at scene. The entire timeline was color-coded to distinguish between camera data, statement data, and neighbor observation data. Although no single point was strong enough to form suspicion of a crime, the preliminary timeline showed an unusual break from the time Elise left work until the next morning. Upon completing this timeline, the team entered it into the file as a foundation for further clarifying unverified time periods. To complete the initial assessment of the degree of abnormality in Elise Morgan's disappearance, the investigative team moved to verifying her fixed daily habits, with particular focus on the two locations Elise visited every day: her workplace and the gym, since her failure to appear at either on March 3rd was the clearest sign that her absence was not due to a normal schedule change. First, investigators contacted the HR department at Elise's company directly. In the attendance records, Elise was an employee with a stable work schedule, rarely late and never absent without notice or in violation of reporting rules. The morning shift manager provided information that on March 3rd, Elise did not appear for the morning meeting and sent no email or internal message to explain her absence. Per company policy, if an employee failed to report absence, they would be contacted directly after 1 hour of work. The responsible staff member called Elise around 9 a.m., but received no response. Elise skipping an important morning meeting, which was a task she always performed consistently, was assessed by the manager as completely contrary to her personality and professional habits. Investigators added this data to the file as confirmation that Elise had performed none of the typical actions of an employee voluntarily absent. Next, the team contacted the gym where Elise worked out daily at 5 a.m. The morning shift staff pulled check-in data by membership code and confirmed Elise was not present for her regular session. Elise was known for arriving early, almost never changing her time, and typically entering between 5:05 and 5:10 a.m. Historical data from the past 6 months showed remarkable consistency. Elise had only been absent twice due to business trips, and both times were noted in advance. Her failure to appear on the morning of March 3rd, with no prior administrative or personal reason reported, led the team to regard this as a significant anomaly. The team requested a review of the gym lobby camera to confirm she had not arrived and left before opening hours, but staff explained that cameras only retained footage from opening time onward, so no additional image support was available. Nevertheless, the lack of a membership code swipe was sufficient evidence to confirm she did not enter the gym that morning. When cross-referencing data between the company and the gym, investigators established two conditions: Elise did not appear at mandatory point number 1 and did not appear at mandatory point number 2. These were two critical leads in assessing an adult's missing status in Houston, especially since both habits were fixed and had been repeated hundreds of times before. After completing this verification, the team expanded to check other early morning personal routine activities, including car use, buying coffee, or making calls before work. None of these points recorded any activity on March 3rd. Elise's car did not leave the garage, there were no morning coffee transactions, and no outgoing calls or messages from her phone since the evening of March 2nd. This moved the disappearance beyond the realm of voluntary disappearance and into the category of situations where Elise was unable to carry out her daily activities starting from the beginning of March 3rd. To ensure objectivity, investigators also verified whether Elise had any personal plans that morning, such as a doctor's appointment, meeting friends, or taking leave. HR confirmed Elise had not requested time off, had no business travel scheduled, and no plans to work remotely. Elise's close coworker also confirmed she had not mentioned any personal matter that would cause her to miss both locations. Finally, the team issued an official determination. Elise did not appear at two key daily time points without any prior notice or indication that she had intentionally changed plans. Her complete absence from early morning through early afternoon, combined with no contact with anyone and no participation in any routine-related activity, reinforced the conclusion that Elise's disappearance occurred suddenly, without preparation, and was inconsistent with the behavior of an independent adult choosing to leave. These data points were recorded in the investigative report, serving as the first objective foundation showing the disappearance had an abnormal nature. Immediately after completing the habit verification step and collecting data from the workplace and gym, the investigation team shifted to conducting the first round of search in the residential area surrounding Elise's home, with the initial radius set at approximately 300 meters from the house location. This area mainly consisted of internal roads, wide sidewalks, roadside lawns, and some small pathways connecting to adjacent rows of houses, sufficient for pedestrians or personal vehicles to move easily at night. First, the two investigators split up to scour the roads directly adjacent to Elise's house, noting the condition of the road surface, sidewalks, and lawns to look for signs such as skid marks, dropped objects, or any clues indicating Elise had left the house on foot. However, the road surfaces and walkways were clean, with no personal items left behind, no signs of struggle or fallen footwear, and no clear footprints due to the dry weather over many days. The areas around the bushes at the two street corners were also checked, but no direct clues were found. Next, the investigation team proceeded to gather information from residents in the area. They knocked on doors of every house within the 300-meter radius, prioritizing homes with windows directly facing or close to possible movement paths that could observe nighttime activity. Some residents reported hearing no unusual noises on the night of March 2nd, while one household directly across the street confirmed hearing a brief light sound, like a door slamming hard somewhere or something dropping onto the floor, occurring around close to midnight. This person could not identify the source or exact location of the sound, so it was recorded only as a reference note. Another resident reported that the garage light at Elise's house turned on for a very short time, estimated at just a few seconds, sometime after 11 p.m. This information was considered valuable as supplementary to the previously recorded light timeline, but still could not clearly determine the purpose of the garage light activating at that moment. No resident reported seeing Elise walk out of the house, no one saw her car leave the garage the previous evening, and no one noted loud talking, arguing, or prolonged strange sounds. While scouring the surrounding area, the team also paid attention to the small pathways connecting rows of houses, paths that residents sometimes used as shortcuts to main roads or to the playground area. These pathways were all checked with high-powered flashlights for signs of activity, but no unusual objects related to Elise were recorded. Residents at both ends of the pathways were asked if they had seen anyone moving late at night, but responses were generally negative. Investigators also noted that this residential area was inherently quiet, with few pedestrians at night, especially after 10 p.m. So the lack of anyone witnessing unusual activity was not particularly surprising. The team continued expanding checks to nearby areas such as public roadside lawns, the locations of multiple households' trash bins, and a stretch of green corridor running parallel to the rear fence line of Elise's row of houses. They searched for dropped items, clothing, purses, or small objects that might have fallen if Elise had left without notice, but all areas were in normal condition. A canine unit was deployed within a limited range to check whether any scent trails led out of the house to surrounding areas, but the team received a report that the scent signals were unclear and no direction of movement could be determined. When the first round of search in the residential area concluded, the investigation team temporarily recorded that there were no signs indicating Elise left the house on foot during the night of March 2nd or the morning of March 3rd. No residents saw her within the relevant time frame, no personal belongings of Elise were discovered outside the house premises, and no ground or pathway traces suggested unusual movement. All collected data was added to the missing person case file, reinforcing the initial assessment that after leaving the workplace, Elise appeared not to have reappeared in the residential area around her home. In the context of the expanded search in the surrounding area, yielding no results, the investigation team shifted focus back to the interior space of the house, where Elise was confirmed to have been last. The objective of the next step was to examine all of her personal belongings to assess the degree of abnormality in her disappearance. This was a key procedure in adult missing persons cases, especially with someone having stable daily habits like Elise, because the condition and presence of items normally carried daily could indicate whether she left the house intentionally or whether the absence occurred suddenly and without preparation. Investigators began near the entryway area, where Elise typically placed her keys and wallet. In the tray next to the door, her personal key set and car keys were found neatly in their usual familiar position as described by close colleagues. Elise's wallet, containing bank cards, Idaho card, and a small amount of cash, was located in the second drawer near the entrance, exactly where she kept it daily. There were no signs of rummaging or unusual movement. Everything was neatly arranged, completely contrary to the scenario of someone leaving in a hurry or after an argument. This led the team to record that if Elise left the house, she did so without taking any minimal essential personal items. Upon checking the garage, Elise's car was still parked in its usual spot, with no signs of use on the morning of March 3rd. The engine temperature checked in the late afternoon was completely cold, confirming the vehicle had not moved since the previous evening. This ruled out the possibility that Elise drove herself somewhere during the night or morning. The trunk and seats showed no strange items or signs that Elise had prepared for a long trip. One investigator noted that the car's organized state was consistent with someone who had returned home the previous evening and had not used the vehicle again the following morning. Continuing to the bedroom, Elise's purse was found in its usual place on the chair beside the bed. The purse still contained all regularly carried personal items, a small notebook, makeup tools, pens, a copy of insurance card, a planner. Nothing was missing, and no item showed signs of being hastily removed. Investigators noted that this was not the typical state when a woman left home voluntarily, as they would at minimum take their personal purse. In the home office, Elise's laptop was found still plugged in and charging, with the lid half open, as if she had used it the previous evening and briefly left the desk. No recent files had been opened after the time she left the company, consistent with colleague information that Elise often reviewed her work schedule in the evening. Next to the laptop, the pen holder, document folders, and desk items were all intact. Here, too, there were no signs that Elise had prepared to leave in the morning. In the bathroom, morning personal items such as toothbrush, toothpaste, and morning cosmetics showed no signs of use on March 3rd. The towels were still dry. This was a significant recorded milestone. Elise had not performed any of her morning routines, which were a fixed part of her schedule, indicating she likely never started the day as usual. When moving to detailed cabinet checks, the team continued to record that no items were missing. Wristwatch, frequently used jewelry, backup wallet, gym membership card, all were present in the house, significantly reducing the likelihood that Elise left voluntarily. At this point, investigators noted that throughout the entire house, only one important item could not be found: Elise's mobile phone. This was the single largest anomaly in the belongings check. The phone was something Elise always carried, even inside the house, according to descriptions from close colleagues and family. The fact that the phone was not in its usual place, not connected to a charger, and not found in any room, led the team to consider this a sign that Elise may have left the house, voluntarily or not, with only this device. Investigators scoured all spaces where the phone could have fallen or been misplaced: under the bed, behind the sofa, inside the purse, desk drawers, wardrobe drawers, but it was still not found. They also checked the kitchen and office trash bins, but no phone or electronic fragments were present. The complete disappearance of the phone, while all other essential items remained in place, was assessed by the team as a high-level anomaly, as it completely broke the logic of any plausible adult departure scenario. If Elise left on her own, she would certainly have taken her wallet, keys, or car. If planning to meet someone, she would at minimum take her purse. Even for a short trip outside, she would need house keys. Yet in this case, all necessary items were left behind, with only the phone missing, a paradox that could not be explained by a voluntary departure scenario. When the personal belongings check concluded, the investigation team reached a preliminary consensus that Elise did not leave the house in any intentional manner, and the presence of essential items in place indicated her daily routine had been abnormally interrupted. From this assessment foundation, the investigation team moved to the next step, analyzing Elise's financial activities and behavior in the 24 hours prior to her disappearance. The goal was to determine whether bank transactions, work schedule, or recent personal interactions revealed any signs of preparation, plan changes, or unusual circumstances that could explain her sudden disappearance. Investigators began by requesting the bank to provide transaction history for the 2 days before Elise went missing. Results showed that her last transaction occurred at noon on March 2nd at a coffee shop near the company, a small amount consistent with her habits. From that point through the end of March 3rd, Elise's account had no new transactions, including online purchases, card payments, cash withdrawals, or transfers. Elise did not habitually keep large amounts of cash, so the complete inactivity of her bank account during her absence was considered abnormal. Investigators noted that in cases where adults leave voluntarily for personal reasons, they typically perform one or more financial actions, such as withdrawing cash, making payments, buying transportation tickets, or at least checking balances. But Elise did none of these. Next, the team examined Elise's work schedule through the company's internal system. They reviewed meeting schedules, assigned tasks, and the most recent schedule edits. Data showed Elise had a normal work schedule for March 3rd, including an internal meeting in the morning and a report due by noon, which she had prepared the day before. Elise had never changed, canceled, or rescheduled her work commitments at the last minute, and according to colleagues, she particularly valued punctuality in her work. System logs recorded her last file access in the late afternoon of March 2nd, with no further activity from her machine throughout the evening. There were no signs that Elise intended to leave the company, take leave, request time off, or attend any private appointment. From these elements, investigators concluded that Elise's professional schedule in the 24 hours before her disappearance was completely stable, with no indicators of any impending unusual change. After checking finances and work schedule, the team continued analyzing Elise's personal communication data, including call history, messages, and personal email exchanges. The carrier provided copies of Elise's phone activity, and results showed the last recorded contact from her device occurred around 8:15 p.m. on March 2nd via a text message to a colleague about completing part of a report. From that point onward, her device made no further calls, texts, or data connections, and there was no response to messages sent afterward. This aligned with the assessment that Elise did not use her phone throughout the evening and following morning. Elise's personal email was also checked, no outgoing or opened emails after 8 p.m. on March 2nd. The complete and prolonged halt in all personal communications was a clear sign that this was not a case of voluntary departure or prior planning. Someone with a stable schedule like Elise rarely turned off or abandoned their phone for an entire evening and morning, especially with pending work tasks. Investigators also verified whether Elise had engaged in social media, messaged friends or family the evening before her disappearance, but results showed none. No login activity occurred on her personal accounts during the critical time frame. After compiling all data from banking, work schedule, and personal communications, the investigation team concluded that Elise's disappearance was entirely inconsistent with any voluntary behavior pattern. No financial transactions, no work arrangements or schedule changes, no signs that Elise prepared to leave home or meet anyone on March 3rd. This placed Elise's case into the category of sudden behavior interruption, a key criterion for classifying risk level in adult missing persons cases. The team officially noted that the case met multiple elements of a suspicious missing person scenario: complete disruption of stable habits, abrupt halt in communications, unfulfilled schedule, and no information indicating intent to leave her living environment. These data reinforced the file that Elise did not disappear for personal reasons or voluntarily, but due to an incident occurring before she began her usual daily activities on the morning of March 3rd. After completing the analysis of finances and behavior in the 24 hours prior to disappearance, the investigation team moved to collecting imaging systems from relevant areas to build additional objective timeline milestones, despite knowing that recording technology in Houston in 2009 had many limitations. The goal of this step was not immediate analysis but to archive all raw image data for later comparison, as any camera capturing movement around Elise's house during the night of March 2nd into the morning of March 3rd held potential value. The first point approached was the camera system at the building where Elise worked. From here, the team obtained the last video recording Elise leaving the main lobby around 8 p.m. on March 2nd. The footage showed her appearing normal, not followed or approached by any individual, and her car leaving the parking lot immediately afterward along the familiar route. Parking lot cameras only captured the headlights, turning on, and movement away from the spot, with no additional information about unusual behavior or the appearance of another vehicle related to her departure from work. The footage was backed up and entered into the file as the last evidence of Elise appearing at her workplace before returning home. After collecting workplace cameras, the team shifted to the residential area where Elise lived. First priority was the house directly opposite. The homeowner reported having an analog security camera mounted on the porch overhang facing the main road. This camera was installed to observe vehicle entry-exit rather than for high-resolution recording, so image quality was very limited, especially at night. Nevertheless, the team collected the entire recording from the night of March 2nd to the morning of March 3rd for analysis. Upon quick review, they noted that around 3 a.m. an SUV appeared in the frame. Due to low image quality, only the general shape of the vehicle and its front light cluster were visible, moving from the direction of Elise's house area outward to the main road. The license plate could not be read. The vehicle color was distorted by dim lighting, and body details were completely unclear. Investigators recorded the SUV's appearance as a time point of interest, but drew no conclusions. They also noted that the camera could not directly view Elise's garage or front door, so it could not confirm whether any vehicle left that location. Next was the corner street camera about 50 meters from Elise's house. This camera, installed by a resident to monitor their own driveway, incidentally covered part of the road leading out of the residential area. The team collected all video from around 10 p.m. on March 2nd to 6 a.m. on March 3rd. In this footage, traffic was very sparse, mostly residents returning home late evening. Near 3 a.m., the system recorded distant vehicle headlights, and within a few seconds afterward, a vehicle passed the camera angle at slow speed without loud noise. The vehicle's shape relatively matched the SUV recorded from the opposite house camera, but due to the angled view and weak street lighting, details remained very limited. Investigators entered into the report that this could be the same vehicle but could not confirm it definitively. They also noted that the SUV showed no unusual behavior, no stopping, no flashing lights, simply moving out to the main road and disappearing from view. Cameras from other houses in the area were mostly limited in angle or inactive at the time. But the team persistently collected all available data. One house at the end of the row had a camera recording their driveway. The video showed no significant movement beyond a few distant vehicles in general traffic, unrelated directly to Elise's house area. All obtained videos were copied to the investigation team's storage drives, time-stamped and location marked for potential later advanced analysis if needed. Due to 2009 technology limitations, enhancing image quality or extracting details such as license plates, vehicle outlines, or nearby figures was nearly impossible at the time. The HPD's image processing system relied mainly on basic zoom, brightness adjustment, and contrast enhancement, but these operations yielded no significant additional information from the blurry, grainy videos. Investigators clearly noted that the videos were treated as raw evidence, unusable for identifying individuals or vehicles in the initial investigation phase, but still retained due to their potential value. The team considered whether any traffic cameras or commercial cameras within a few hundred meters might have captured Elise's or vehicles on the night of the incident. Results showed the nearest traffic camera was at an intersection over a mile away, with no ability to record activity in the residential area. Nearby convenience stores either had no outward-facing cameras or cameras with angles too distant to capture accurate nighttime images. Upon completing the first round of camera collection, the investigation team summarized that they had only 3 main image sources. The company camera confirming the time Elise left work, the opposite house camera recording an SUV appearing and leaving the area around 3 a.m., and the corner street camera capturing vehicle movement in the same time frame, most likely the same vehicle. No camera recorded Elise leaving the house, no images showed the front door or garage opening during the critical hours, and no footage confirmed Elise's appearance outside after returning home on the evening of March 2nd. All image data was entered into the file in a supporting roll, with clear notes that deeper analysis was not feasible at the time due to 2009 technology limitations. But these raw recordings were fully archived due to their potential to become key evidence if the investigation expanded in the future. In the context where camera footage provided no direct clues about Elise's movements, the investigative team decided to shift to the next step by expanding the search radius beyond the residential area. The focus of this phase was placed on the nearest natural areas accessible by vehicle in a short time, particularly Buffalo Bayou and Terry Hershey Park. These are areas with more complex terrain features, including numerous trails, grassy fields, slopes, and sparse wooded sections. Places where people could walk or drive to in a short time from Elise's home, and where previous missing persons cases had been recorded in HPD files. The investigative team established the starting point for the search at a section of Buffalo Bayou, less than 1 mile from Elise's home, deploying K9 units tasked with tracking any residual scent signals if Elise had ever entered the area. The search began early in the morning to take advantage of cooler weather conditions and better scent retention on the ground surface. K9 teams moved along main trails, along the water's edge, and through densely vegetated grassy areas commonly used as shortcuts by locals. However, Most of the signals the working dogs reacted to were old scent trails from morning exercisers or pedestrians from previous days, with no clear indications matching the distinctive scent obtained from Elise's clothing. The ground surface in these areas was relatively dry, showing no fresh shoe prints or unusually compressed spots, suggesting someone had stopped during the night. The search team also checked common gathering points, such as small parking lots, areas near overpasses, and locations with open sightlines, but found no abandoned items, purses, jackets, or any objects linked to Elise. After 2 continuous hours of searching along the bayou banks, the investigative team temporarily noted that there was no clear evidence indicating Elise had ever been in this area during the time of her disappearance. From Buffalo Bayou, the search force moved to Terry Hershey Park, which features an extensive network of walking and biking trails, along with many smaller paths branching off the main routes into deeper sparse wooded areas along the roadside. This was a sufficiently large area to warrant thorough inspection, especially since it was only a few minutes' drive from Elise's residential neighborhood. Foot teams were divided into groups, with each group assigned a segment of the park and focusing on less frequented areas such as dimly lit paths, secluded benches, and small wooden bridges crossing drainage ditches. K-9 units continued to assist, but due to the high density of morning exercisers, scent signals were diluted and difficult to differentiate, making it nearly impossible to follow a specific trail. Certain areas with soft soil or thick layers of decaying leaves were carefully examined for signs of fresh footprints or unusual ground disturbance. However, all checks yielded normal results: no signs of heavy objects being dragged, no deep indentations, and no isolated footprints leading away from main paths. Along the small creek running parallel to the park, the search team inspected low-lying areas where water tends to pool after rain. Since there had been no significant rainfall prior to early March, the surfaces were dry and showed no noteworthy new signs. They also checked public trash cans, restrooms, and hidden spots such as behind the park maintenance building, but found no personal items that could be connected to Elise. After the first morning of searching, the investigative team decided to conduct one additional sweep within the park, concentrating on intersections between main paths and side trails. They considered the possibility that Elise might have walked to the park from home, but the distance was considerable, making this scenario inconsistent with evidence collected from the scene, especially since Elise left all her personal belongings behind and there were no indications she had left the house on foot. The search revolved around the hypothesis that Elise may have been brought to the park or left the house involuntarily, but no elements at the scene supported that theory. All data from supporting drones, heat maps of stopping points, and search routes were compiled, but no new leads emerged. Ultimately, after many hours of deploying both K-9 and foot teams across a wide area, the investigative team officially recorded that the second round of searches, including Buffalo Bayou and Terry Hershey Park, yielded no physical evidence or traces related to Elise Morgan. The natural areas near Elise's home, previously considered the most likely locations to find signs of the victim's movement if she had left the house at night, provided no additional data for the investigative timeline. When the searches at Buffalo Bayou and Hershey Park produced no traces related to Elise Morgan, the investigative team decided to return to the house once more, this time with full support from the crime scene unit, to conduct a deeper, more meticulous, and technical examination than the initial survey. The goal was not to search for blood or criminal indicators based on speculation, but to determine whether any signs of localized cleaning, micro-disturbances, or surface anomalies existed in Elise's living space, signs that typically appear only when a scene has been interfered with. The examination was conducted in the morning to utilize strong natural light, which aided in observing floor, wall, and object surface structures. CSU began in the living room, using low-angle lighting and fine dust-scanning tools to look for wipe streaks, drag marks, or unevenly glossy floor patches. However, the wooden floor surface in the living room was completely uniform, with no areas that were dulled or unusually shiny, suggesting no localized cleaning had occurred recently. Corners and baseboards were checked for erased dust traces, but dust adhered evenly across areas, with no patches missing their natural dust layer. This indicated the surfaces had not been disturbed after the time Elise was confirmed to have been present in the home. Moving to the kitchen, CSU applied oil-revealing powder to detect wipe marks or aggressively cleaned handles. Cabinet knobs, countertops, sinks, and tablet tops all showed a light, natural oil buildup consistent with normal living conditions. There were no abrupt wipe marks or unusually clean surface patches. The kitchen trash can was opened, sorted, and its inner bag examined. The bag contained typical household waste such as food wrappers and fruit peels, with no sensitive items like cloths, towels, or absorbent papers showing signs of having wiped liquids. They noted that the household trash aligned with activities on March 2nd, with no signs of intentional cleanup after Elise returned. Proceeding to the bedroom, CSU used ultraviolet light to detect anomalous bright patches. Bedsheets, pillows, and blankets exhibited normal reflectivity, with no concentrated bright spots suggesting fresh organic fluid stains. The floor around the bed was closely inspected for signs of moved objects or drag marks, but no freshly scratched points or displaced positions relative to evenly settled dust around table and chair legs were found. The closet was open to check for hidden or crammed items, but no clothing showed disturbance beyond normal use levels. In the home office, where Elise was believed to have been on the night before her disappearance, CSU paid particular attention. The desk legs, and surrounding floor were examined for signs of forceful movement or small-scale cleaning, but all surfaces remained stable. The laptop on the desk still bore faint fingerprints consistent with Elise's prior use, with no signs of subsequent technical inspection or wiping. CSU scanned the floor with narrow-angle LD lights to detect fallen fabric fibers, hair, or unusual streaks, but only recovered a few scattered fallen hairs, all consistent with normal activity and lacking unusual characteristics. Moving to the garage, this area considered critical because it was the only location in the timeline where lights were recorded turning on at night. CSU employed additional fluorescent powder and ultraviolet light to examine the garage floor, walls, and storage shelves. The garage was quite tidy, with tools hung in their proper places. The concrete floor was dry, showing no large wipe marks or water streaks. Under UV light, there were no strong fluorescent reactions suggesting organic substances. Although some faint halos appeared, they were confirmed as old machine oil stains, common in household garages. Elise's vehicle was re-examined. Both exterior and interior surfaces showed dust accumulation consistent with a car unused for 24 hours, with no recent occupant marks or scattered items in the cabin. CSU then conducted deeper checks of overlooked areas, such as behind sofas, under beds, behind cabinets, and in recessed corners. These spots are particularly important because interference would disturb or alter dust structures. However, dust layers in those areas were uniform, with no fresh sweep paths or dust pushed to the sides, typical signs of localized cleaning. Door thresholds, hinges, and door frame areas were inspected for scratches or light prying marks. No evidence suggested any door had been forced open, slammed unusually, or subjected to force. Finally, CSU examined the bathroom for wet towels, wipe marks, water stains, or dried liquid residue. Mirror, sink, medicine cabinet, and floor surfaces showed no smudged erasures or heavy wipe streaks. Towels were dry, and towel hooks showed no repositioned items. Summarizing all findings, CSU concluded that there were no signs whatsoever of scene cleanup, conflict, breakage, or blood evidence inside Elise Morgan's home. No direct physical evidence was found, no signs of struggle, and no sudden surface changes. Elise's home reflected normal living conditions up until an undetermined point after her return on the evening of March 2nd, but contained absolutely no physical indications of a disruptive event or forced intervention. When the crime scene unit completed its scene review without detecting any physical anomalies, the investigative team shifted focus to electronic factors, specifically the devices of Raymond Doyle, the only person confirmed to have been in the house with Elise on the evening of March 2nd. Since Elise's phone was never found, examining Raymond's phone became a crucial link in establishing timelines and verifying statements. Investigators requested that Raymond provide his device to assist the investigation, and Raymond voluntarily handed over his phone per procedure. CSU transferred the device to the Digital Forensics Unit for extraction of call logs, message history, and system data. The goal was not to recover message content, which was difficult in 2009, but to cross-reference the device's overall activity with the timeline Raymond presented. Analysis results showed Raymond's phone had sporadic activity in the first half of the evening, including a short call around 7:40 p.m., an outgoing message around 8:10 p.m., and an incoming message near 8:30 p.m. These timestamps aligned with the period before Elise was recorded leaving her office on company cameras, thus not contradicting the established timeline. However, after approximately 8:45 p.m., all device activity abruptly ceased for a period lasting nearly 3 hours. There were no outgoing calls, no answered incoming calls, no sent messages, and no typical background activity from older devices such as automatic voicemail checks or periodic network pings. Investigators noted this as a significant technical gap, especially since Raymond stated he watched television until nearly 10 p.m. before going to bed. Nevertheless, the phone's inactivity during that window did not directly contradict his statement, as a user could leave the phone in another room. Still, this 3-hour gap was documented in the record as a point requiring further cross-verification. Continuing analysis after the gap period, logs recorded Raymond making a missed call attempt around 12:30 a.m., the time he described as waking up to get water. This call did not connect, but marked the first activity after hours of silence, creating an important cross-reference between his statement and device data. Investigators flagged the 12:30 a.m. mark as the potential upper limit for Raymond's contact window with Elise. After lights in the house were observed turned off by neighbors around 10 p.m. Regarding messages, the forensics unit confirmed multiple deleted messages on the device, but due to limitations of 2009-era phone technology and forensic tools, original content recovery was impossible. The investigative team could only determine deletion timestamps via system traces and found that most deletions occurred days before Elise's disappearance, providing no direct grounds for suspicion. Messages on March 2nd were mostly work-related or routine communications. However, technological constraints meant the team could not determine whether any messages sent or received between 8:45 p.m. and 11:40 p.m. had been deleted, as the system did not retain metadata after manual deletion. This result was entered into the file as a technical limitation rather than an indicator of criminal behavior. Network data showed Raymond's phone remained in the home area throughout the night, consistent with his statement that he stayed home all evening. Older devices lacked GPS, so investigators could not pinpoint minute-by-minute locations, but cell tower signals remained stable around the home area with no signs of distant movement. Regarding the abnormality of the activity gap, investigators noted that while noteworthy, it did not exceed the realm of possibility for someone who silenced their phone or left it in another room. More significantly, this interruption coincided with the period when Elise ceased phone contact, however. At that stage, no direct link between the two silences had been established to form a conclusion. The investigative team further reviewed call history, incoming and outgoing over the prior 3 weeks, and found Raymond typically used his phone mainly during the day with limited evening activity. This helped rule out the hypothesis of the phone being unusually powered off or abandoned on the evening of Elise's disappearance. Ultimately, from the collected data, the investigative team compiled a consolidated timeline, last activity at 8:45 p.m. A nearly 3-hour gap, activity resuming near 12:30 a.m. No browser access, no app activity, and no outgoing messages occurred during the period when Elise was determined to have lost contact. This status was included in the initial investigative report as a factor requiring further monitoring, but insufficient as grounds for accusation. After completing the analysis of Raymond's phone activity without obtaining clarifying evidence regarding the time of Elise's disappearance, the investigative team proceeded to a third round of searches with an expanded radius of up to 10 miles from Elise's home to examine any areas where she might have appeared or left traces if she had left voluntarily at night. The radius expansion was based on 2 reasons. First, no evidence existed that Elise left the home on foot within a smaller radius. Second, the SUV recorded at 3 a.m., though not yet linked, indicated the possibility of vehicle movement through the area at a critical time. The 10-mile radius encompassed diverse areas, ongoing construction sites, undeveloped vacant lots, lightly traveled side roads, peripheral parking areas, and sparsely populated corridors along Houston's west side. These locations are inherently difficult to monitor and offer many secluded spots if anyone left the home under distress or met with an incident. The investigative team divided forces into 3 groups. One sweeping a construction site near Eldridge Parkway, another checking vacant lots along Memorial Drive, and the third focusing on secondary roads leading out of the residential area. At the construction site, investigators examined dirt road segments, material staging areas, temporary storage containers, and soft soil zones prone to footprints or tire tracks. However, ground surfaces there were mostly compacted earth and concrete, with no fresh shoe impressions or abandoned items recorded. Workers at the site reported the area remained quiet all night, with no unusual vehicles entering or exiting during early morning hours. At vacant lots along Memorial Drive, search teams inspected areas with incomplete fencing or unblocked access points. Some lots had small trails leading inward, but deep checks yielded no evidence such as purses, clothing, documents, or recent contact signs. Teams used high-powered lights to examine underbrush, trail ends, and pooled water areas, but nothing noteworthy was found. The third team surveyed lightly traveled secondary roads, particularly dead-end or poorly lit streets where short-term vehicle stops could go unnoticed. They recorded many old tire tracks, but none matching the time of Elise's disappearance. License plates from vehicles parked roadside belonged to local residents or long-distance walkers. No vehicles were abandoned overnight or showed suspicious signs. In parallel with physical searches, the investigative team constructed hypothetical route maps of possible journeys Elise might have taken if she left voluntarily. They calculated travel times from the home to points within the 10-mile radius under 3 scenarios: Elise walking, Elise driving her own vehicle, or Elise being picked up or leaving with another vehicle. The walking hypothesis was quickly ruled out because Elise was not wearing athletic shoes, did not carry a purse, and had no apparent reason to leave the house on foot in the dark. The hypothesis of Elise driving herself was also inconsistent because her vehicle remained stationary in the garage with no signs of use the following morning. The third hypothesis, Elise leaving with another vehicle, could not be entirely eliminated, but at this point no camera footage or witness statements supported it. The team also considered whether Elise might have gone to a familiar location via rideshare or taxi, but 2009 records from traditional taxi companies showed no trips to Elise's home during the relevant time frame. No calls from Elise's phone were made to book a ride, significantly reducing the likelihood she left voluntarily. As searches extended to farther bayou-adjacent areas, teams inspected dirt paths leading to water edges where people occasionally fish or stop briefly. Some areas were deemed easily concealed from main roads, but thorough checks of even the smallest access points yielded no items or traces bearing Elise's characteristics. Additional checks of public parking lots and businesses with security cameras revealed no vehicles or movements matching the time period under scrutiny. Mapping plausible routes further clarified one reality. No logical path existed by which Elise could have left the house on her own during the night of March 2nd or morning of March 3rd without taking basic belongings. This led the search force to conclude the third round without new leads. After an extended day of sweeping a large area, the investigative team officially recorded that the third round of searches within a 10-mile radius produced no results related to Elise Morgan, identified no feasible route if she left voluntarily, and found no physical traces indicating she had ever appeared in any area outside her home prior to her disappearance. When the third search loop concluded without providing any plausible leads, the investigative team was forced to reassess the entire process and recognize that Elise Morgan's disappearance was directly confronting the technological limits of 2009, a barrier that left every investigative direction deadlocked. Although they had collected numerous video segments from company cameras, the house across the street, and street corners, the analog image quality at that time was too low, with poor resolution and dense grain noise, making vehicle or human figure identification almost impossible. The SUV that appeared at 3 a.m. was a rare objective clue, but in the video quality obtained by the team, the vehicle's shape appeared only as a blurry mass with no distinguishable color, no readable license plate, and no determination of the number of occupants inside. Every attempt to zoom in or brighten the image only made it more pixelated and distorted. Similarly, no camera in the residential area pointed directly at Elise's front door or garage, leaving the police completely unable to know whether any vehicle had stopped in front of the house that night. Beyond camera limitations, another serious factor was the absence of GPS in personal life in 2009. Elise's 2007 vehicle had no built-in GPS tracking. Her phone was also not a modern smartphone capable of storing or transmitting location data. This made any effort to reconstruct Elise's or Raymond's travel route impossible to base on digital data. In modern missing persons cases, GPS is often the key to pinpointing the last movements, but at that time, the team could only rely on blurry cameras and fragmented witness statements, both lacking precision. Additionally, the failure to find Elise's phone rendered any exploitation of data from her device completely impossible. Even if it had been found, digital forensic technology in Houston in 2009 was not advanced enough to recover all deleted messages or extract high-accuracy location data from cell towers. Analysis was limited to simple call logs and network connection timestamps, data insufficient to determine movement or anomalous behavior. A similar situation occurred when the team attempted deeper exploitation of Raymond's device. Although they extracted basic logs, many messages had been deleted and could not be recovered, and there was no application or system logging user activity in sufficient detail to reconstruct behavior. The 3-hour gap on Raymond's phone, while noteworthy, could not be used as evidence because nothing proved the device was powered off or simply left idle in another room. Another limitation stemmed from public surveillance databases. In 2009, Houston's traffic camera system was not synchronously connected. Data was stored only for a short period, and coverage was limited. No traffic cameras captured the route of the suspect SUV or any other vehicle leaving the residential area. When the team approached stores, gas stations, and commercial premises within a 10-mile radius for video footage, most cameras retained footage for a maximum of 24 to 48 hours, and the time of Elise's disappearance had already exceeded that retention window. This prevented them from tracking the vehicle seen in the blurry footage from the neighbor's camera. Moreover, the lack of advanced image analysis technology meant the team could not enhance sharpness or reconstruct vehicle contours despite their efforts. Techniques, such as headlight pattern recognition, body shape analysis, or advanced noise reduction for resolution enhancement, did not yet exist in the 2009 forensic toolkit. Image experts could only confirm that it was a mid-size SUV, but the make, model year, or any other identifying details remained unclear. These technological limitations left the case without any breakthrough investigative anchor points. There was no witness who saw Elise leave the house, no camera capturing movement at the door, no GPS route, no phone signals, no physical traces inside the house, and no financial transactions or communications to lead to any further clues. The map of plausible movements remained blank, and every investigative direction circled back to the same unanswered questions. How did Elise leave the house, at what time, and with whom? And no data provided any answers. When the team held a comprehensive summary meeting after more than a week of full deployment, the report noted that all objective information sources, cameras, phone data, bank transactions, GPS activity, physical evidence at the scene, failed to provide any key to expand the investigation. Elise's complete absence from every surveillance system and random data point in a major city caused the case to become virtually suspended from its earliest days. The lead investigator described the case status with a phrase that appeared frequently in the files that year: lacking technical anchors to build hypotheses. Without anchors, even though the team continued gathering information, they had no basis to prioritize directions or branch investigations by likelihood. Elise Morgan's disappearance, in less than 2 weeks, entered a state of complete technical deadlock, a first dead end that the team was forced to officially record in the file. After evaluating all technological limitations and noting that no data source provided a technical anchor to expand the investigation, the team reached the 30-day milestone since Elise Morgan was reported missing. Per HPD procedure, a comprehensive report had to be prepared to determine whether to continue full deployment or adjust the case priority level. The report began by listing the 7 main investigative directions pursued in the first month: crime scene examination, review of personal belongings, analysis of finances and work schedule, collection of witness statements, examination of Raymond's phone, collection of round 1 cameras, and expanded search within a 10-mile radius. The consolidated results showed that none of these directions produced any objective evidence suggesting foul play inside the home or at any location within the investigative scope. The crime scene unit found no blood, signs of struggle, cleanup traces, or unusual evidence. This was one of the key factors preventing the case from meeting the threshold to convert to a criminal investigation. In foul play cases, even at minimal levels, some physical indicators typically appear: surface marks, disturbed items, dropped or dragged objects, or signs of heavy movement. However, Elise's home was forensically clean, not due to deliberate cleaning, but in a normal living state, with no basis to assume violence had occurred inside. The second key element in the report was the team's inability to establish any objective evidence that Elise had ever left the house. No camera captured the front door or garage opening. No neighbor saw Elise walking. No calls or messages originated from her phone after 8:15 p.m. on March 2nd, and no evidence indicated any vehicle was used. All of Elise's personal belongings, wallet, keys, purse, car, remained at home, making voluntary departure extremely unlikely. On the other hand, there was also no element forcing the investigation to conclude that Elise had been forcibly removed. With no evidence of departure, no scene traces, and no camera capturing suspicious movement, the team could not determine the mechanism of Elise's disappearance under any hypothesis acceptable in a legal file. The 30-day report also recorded that the absence of GPS or device location data completely restricted the ability to track Elise's route or any related vehicle. The collected cameras were too blurry to identify vehicles, and none showed Elise appearing that night. Analysis of Raymond's phone produced no breakthrough. The 3-hour activity gap, though notable, was insufficient to constitute suspicion due to lack of supporting evidence. Behaviorally, Elise's stable routine followed by sudden disappearance was deemed anomalous, but in legal files, behavioral anomaly alone could not convert the case to foul play without accompanying physical or digital evidence. Under 2009 regulations, HPD maintained high priority for adult missing persons cases only when 3 factors were present: medical risk, signs of foul play, or evidence the missing person left under unstable conditions. Elise's file met none of these: no medical history, no signs of assault, and no evidence she left the house in any manner. Therefore, despite the concern for family and colleagues, the team was required to follow standard procedure and assess that this disappearance did not meet criteria to continue active investigative priority. The lead investigator noted that while foul play could not be entirely ruled out, all available data failed to create any logical chain linking any person to Elise's disappearance. Continuing deep investigation without technical basis was deemed unfeasible given limited resources. The report concluded that Elise Morgan's file was moved from active investigation to monitoring status and intermediate state before further priority reduction. In this status, the file remained open but without a dedicated daily follow-up team. Instead, it would be updated only upon new information from family witnesses or incidental findings. Finally, in the risk assessment section, the team stated clearly that with no evidence proving a crime had occurred and no proof Elise had left the house, the case completely lacked anchors for continued active investigation. This was the primary basis for downgrading priority, marking one of the most significant status changes in the case progression and the point at which the investigative structure began to fall into deadlock. After Elise Morgan's file was officially downgraded and maintained in monitoring status, the case gradually entered a prolonged stagnation phase as no additional information, witnesses, or new traces emerged over the following 2 years. Each time the family contacted for updates, police rechecked data sources, but results remained unchanged. No new financial activity, no appearances in medical systems, no identity usage reports, and no sightings of Elise anywhere in Houston or out of state. The lack of a discovered body also failed to narrow speculation. Everything remained stuck at one point. Elise vanished from the surface of information without leaving any trace. By 2012, per Houston Police Department procedure for adult missing persons cases lasting over 3 years without developments, Elise's entire file was officially transferred to the Cold Case Unit for long-term archiving. The file was fully sealed with all materials collected from 2009-2012, search reports, camera data, scene logs, Raymond's phone examination results, witness notes, search maps, and all pre-disappearance behavioral analysis of Elise. Upon transfer, the assigned investigator noted in the handover log that the case did not meet criteria for criminal expansion, had no capacity for continued deployment due to lack of objective data foundation, and contained no evidence Elise left Houston or remained alive after March 2, 2009. From that point, Elise's file no longer had a dedicated follow-up team. Instead, it was placed in the low-level cold case group, cases with no clear signs of crime but that could not be fully closed. Files at this level were reviewed only upon incidental discoveries, new statements, or significant changes in investigative technology. However, in Elise's case, no review logs showed the file being reopened during the 11 years after archiving. From 2012 to 2023, the file was updated only twice for administrative purposes, once in 2015 at the family's request to confirm status, and once in 2019 for technical updating when HPD transitioned from paper to digitized storage. Digitization did not alter the case status. All data remained raw, unconnected, and generated no new investigative directions. There were no requests for re-examination of the scene, no proposals for additional forensic testing, and no emerging tips to trigger review. Even the SUV captured on the 3 a.m. camera, once considered the sole lead, was deemed insufficiently valuable due to unusable imagery. Overall, Elise's disappearance came to be regarded as a case unsolvable by 2009 technology and methods, causing the file to remain completely static for over a decade. As newer, clearer evidence major crimes continuously appeared, Elise Morgan's file gradually receded to the back of the cold case storage list, lying dormant under the dust of cases the city could no longer pursue at that time. Moving into 2023, when the Houston Police Department launched a comprehensive upgrade program for the cold case unit to leverage advances in artificial intelligence, image processing, and electronic device forensics. All long-pending files were reviewed and classified by digital-heavy potential cases with abundant raw electronic data that previously could not be exploited due to technological limits. This included cases with low-quality cameras, old mobile devices, fragmented transaction data, or visual clues inanalyzable at the time of occurrence. As the review team went through over 300 backlogged files, Elise Morgan's case was quickly flagged as special due to possessing elements modern technology could utilize: analog cameras from multiple angles, Raymond's phone log data, carrier metadata copies, and a series of detailed archived scene reports. All were forms of data previously deemed unexploitable, but in 2023 became valuable resources for image reconstruction and device analysis technology. Another key factor, placing Elise on the priority list, was the cleanliness of the 2009 scene. This may seem paradoxical, but to modern examiners, an undisturbed scene with no cleanup signs and clear photographic documentation allows algorithms to easily simulate the spatial structure at the time of the incident. Elise, leaving all personal belongings in the house, except her phone, also created a clear behavioral model for reanalysis without interference from voluntary departure possibilities. During the initial cold case group evaluation meeting, the 2009-2012 reports were represented through a 2023 lens. Cameras too blurry for identification then could now use AI for detail reconstruction. Old smartphones, unrecoverable for messages, then could now have embedded chips analyzed. Raymond's fragmented call logs could now be rebuilt with real-time algorithms. Even cell tower signals, previously considered insufficiently accurate, could now be processed with advanced triangulation models. Elise Morgan's case thus became one of 7 files selected for immediate reinvestigation in the first phase of the 2023 cold case program. After selection, a dedicated reinvestigation team was formed, consisting of 3 veteran investigators experienced in number-based case solving, an AI image processing specialist, a mobile device forensics technician, and a behavioral timeline data analyst. The team was granted full access to Elise's raw file data, including digital scans of all old reports, original scene photos, analog video copies, detailed carrier logs, and original interview transcripts. The full digitization from 2019 allowed the reinvestigation team quick access without revisiting paper documents. The first phase of reinvestigation focused on organizing and categorizing data. All video segments from the neighbor's camera, street corner cameras, and company cameras were compiled into an image data package. All of Raymond's phone data was placed in a separate analysis package, and all scene reports, witness statements, and Elise's pre-disappearance activity records were grouped into a behavioral data set. The cold case unit determined that the hardest element of Elise's case was the absence of an action chain after she arrived home. Therefore, the 2023 reinvestigation goal was not traditional researching, but focused exploitation of previously overlooked electronic clues. At the first meeting, the cold case unit leader emphasized that Elise's file was one of very few with a complete raw data repository that was not properly analyzed at the time. And if 2023 technology achieved even one breakthrough from the video or Raymond's device, the entire case trajectory could change. The lack of reinvestigation for 11 years preserved the file's original integrity, free from new data or hypotheses, which benefited modern analysis model application. AI specialists also believed that reconstructing the shape of the vehicle at 3 a.m. or identifying even a small behavior on camera could allow backward tracing of routes or matching vehicle lists. Meanwhile, the device analysis group viewed Raymond's use of an old phone as an advantage, since that type of memory chip was difficult to deeply encrypt and sometimes retained overlooked traces that old technology could not read. When all these factors were synthesized, the cold case unit officially reactivated Elise Morgan's file in February 2023. Marking the first time in over a decade the case returned to active investigation status with a clear objective: fully exploit all electronic and image data to determine what happened on the night Elise disappeared in 2009. After the cold case unit reactivated the Elise Morgan file and cataloged all image data obtained in 2009, the engineering team's first task was to run the entire analog video through the AI super resolution system, a deep learning-based image reconstruction technology that allows the recovery of details previously lost due to low resolution, grain noise, or poor lighting. The first video processed was the footage from the porch camera of the house across the street, which had captured an SUV appearing around 3 a.m. but with imagery too blurry to identify any features. When fed into the system, the software began analyzing each frame, separating noise, and reconstructing outlines by predicting based on motion patterns in dark space. The technicians monitored every processing stage: noise reduction, motion interpolation, edge sharpening, light stabilization, and gradually the originally indistinct color blobs started to become clearer. First came the identification of headlight structure. The light that had been just a smeared streak was separated by AI into two headlight clusters, spaced appropriately for a mid-size SUV from the 2007-2012 era. Next, the system upscaled the vehicle body area, reconstructing contours and estimated height. Although not sharp enough to read a license plate, the image was clear enough to confirm that the vehicle matched the body style of several common SUV models in the area at that time. More importantly, when contrast was increased in the shadow area directly in front of Elise's garage, the software detected a very subtle movement invisible to the naked eye in 2009, a human silhouette standing close to the inside of the garage door, appearing only briefly when the vehicle's light reflected off the metal surface. This silhouette lacked facial or clothing details, but AI reconstructed the overall shape, including estimated height, shoulder structure, and slight arm movement. The engineering team noted that the silhouette remained stationary for a few seconds before shifting slightly back into the darker area. In the original video, the dark area showed no human shape at all, but after brightness enhancement and supplementation with motion prediction modeling, AI identified two phases of movement. First, the figure leaning left, as if observing outward, then slightly crouching, as if removing or picking up something. The movement was discrete and completely inconsistent with normal resident activity at 3 a.m. To verify image reliability, the team cross-ran the model on the street corner video captured that same night. Although that camera was farther away and partially obstructed by a tree, the AI system still reconstructed light reflections from the vehicle's surface just before it passed out of frame. When synchronizing the two videos by timestamp, the team discovered that the moment the garage silhouette moved coincided exactly with the SUV turning on its headlights before leaving the neighborhood. This suggested the silhouette was directly related to the SUV's departure, though the precise connection could not yet be determined. A deeper upgrade was performed using an AI microactivity analysis model designed to detect extremely subtle movements based on per-pixel light changes. The team processed the segment from 2:58 to 3:03 a.m., considered the critical window. The model detected that before the vehicle left, the shadow area near the garage door exhibited slight oscillations matching human body movement rhythm, weight shifting from one foot to the other, followed by a slight forward lean. These movements lasted a total of 4-5 seconds, but were sufficient for the algorithm to classify them as micro-body displacement, intentional body movement, not random object motion or shadow flicker. Technicians noted that the silhouette's lean did not match someone opening the door from outside, but resembled someone standing behind the garage door, manipulating the inner edge or handle. When the system ran additional reflection analysis, a small reflective point was identified in the lower part of the silhouette, resembling light bouncing off a small metallic object. This reflection point disappeared immediately after the silhouette moved into a darker area. The software could not identify the object, but listed it as likely belonging to the object with metallic surface group, including keys, an old phone, small tool, or metallic item. This aligned with the record that Elise's phone was never found, though the video could not confirm relevance. Continuing to process frames after the vehicle left the neighborhood, AI detected another notable point. After the SUV exited the frame, residual light, reflecting faintly on the garage door, showed the door structure slightly misaligned for a few seconds, as if touched or pulled from inside. The original image could not reveal this detail due to high noise, but the super-resolution model reconstructed a slight curve in the door edge before it returned to position. The engineering team entered this finding into the report because it indicated the garage may have been partially opened at a time when no camera directly captured the event. The image analysis team's final conclusion was that the enhanced video yielded 3 key leads: the presence of a silhouette in the garage at 3 a.m., movement synchronized with the SUV's departure from the neighborhood, and evidence of garage door disturbance. None of these elements appeared during the 2009 video review and could only be detected thanks to modern AI image reconstruction technology. Although the silhouette's identity, gender, or connection to Elise could not yet be determined, the cold case team assessed this as the first breakthrough with potential to shift the investigation's direction, as it was the first time human activity appeared at a location directly adjacent to Elise during the presumed time of her disappearance. Immediately after the AI super resolution detected the garage silhouette and reconstructed the 3 a.m. SUV shape, the cold case team shifted to vehicle matching using a specialized AI model that analyzes vehicle size, shape, and lighting structure under low light conditions. This was one of the new technologies capable of providing probability matches between blurry video vehicles and real-world vehicle lists, even when the original imagery was virtually unrecognizable to the naked eye. First, the engineering team extracted all frames containing the SUV from both the opposite house video and the street corner video. They created a sequence of 24 consecutive frames, enough for the system to analyze motion and reconstruct a three-dimensional vehicle model based on light distortion and camera shake. The AI model was programmed to identify 3 main parameter groups: front headlight height relative to the road surface, roofline slope, and horizontal body proportions. These parameters vary little between models and remain identifiable even in very blurry images. When analyzing the headlights, AI determined their height at an average 87-93 centimeters from the road, lower than full-size SUVs but higher than sedans or small crossovers. This placed the SUV in the mid-size SUV 2007-2012 category. Next, AI reconstructed the roofline by analyzing shadows cast on a distant wall. The roof angle was identified as sloping gently rearward, not overly raked, consistent with several popular SUV models from that period such as the Honda CR-V, Toyota RAV4, Ford Escape, Mazda CX-7, and some older Hyundai lines. Combining these 2 parameters, the system narrowed the list to 4 models with the highest probability. In the 2009 vehicle registration records for the neighborhood where Elise lived, only 2 owners possessed vehicles matching the modeled group. One of them was Raymond Doyle, with a 2008 Ford Escape SUV in metallic gray. For verification, the engineering team input real photos of Raymond's vehicle into the comparison model. They rephotographed the vehicle at multiple angles, simulating similar low light and capturing surface reflections. They then ran curve matching, a technique that aligns vehicle body contours based on projected length and roof curvature. The first result was striking. The roofline contour in the video matched Raymond's vehicle at 82%. When the system added headlight positioning, the match probability rose to 87%. Adding analysis of headlight spacing and reflected beam width on the road surface increased it further to 91%. An extremely high figure given the analog blurry video conditions. One of the most critical analyses came from light signature analysis, examining the unique light dispersion pattern of each headlight design. Despite noise and blur, each headlight model has distinct lens structure characteristics. Comparing the SUV headlight reflections in the video against Raymond's vehicle headlight data yielded a 78% match, sufficient to place Raymond's vehicle in the high suspicion group, but not yet conclusive. The team continued with chassis proportion analysis, particularly useful for vehicles moving through angled frames. From the street corner video, AI measured the distance between wheel shadow axes and derived an approximate ratio. Compared to Raymond's vehicle, the ratio matched within a 4% margin of error, a figure considered acceptable under poor video quality. After running all parameters, the AI system produced a composite probability, 94.2% likelihood, that the SUV appearing at 3 a.m. was Raymond Doyle's 2008 Ford Escape. This was the highest score achieved across all comparisons between the original video and any vehicle in the database. The cold case unit immediately regarded this as a major breakthrough, as it was the first time they had technical evidence showing that the vehicle leaving the neighborhood at the time Elise disappeared was very likely Raymond's, the only person with Elise that night of March 2nd, and previously not directly implicated due to lack of evidence. Additionally, when AI analyzed vehicle motion, the model identified that the SUV did not accelerate immediately upon exiting the driveway, but had a very brief pause, nearly 1 second. This coincided precisely with the garage silhouette's movement. The engineering team noted that the synchronization between human motion and vehicle motion could not be considered random, as two cameras at different locations captured the events within the same time window. From a technical perspective, this constituted temporal pairing, two separate source events occurring within a logically consistent time sequence. This result prompted the team to re-examine Raymond's 2009 statement. In the original file, Raymond claimed he did not leave the house that night and did not use the vehicle after going to bed. Yet with a 94.2% probability, his vehicle was assessed as the one appearing in the opposite house camera footage at 3 a.m., a time he claimed to be asleep. The investigative team recorded this as a major discrepancy between the new technical data and the old statement. Although it could not yet be concluded that Raymond was driving, the presence of his vehicle in the video fundamentally altered the case dynamics. The AI model could not identify the driver, but the vehicle feature match probability was strong enough to raise a question never asked in 2009: why did Raymond Doyle's vehicle leave the neighborhood at the exact time of key timeline points in Elise Morgan's disappearance? The AI vehicle matching, for the first time in the history of Elise's file, created the clearest breakthrough since the day she vanished, pulling the case out of more than a decade of ambiguity. Immediately after the AI model determined a very high probability that the 3 a.m. SUV was Raymond Doyle's vehicle, the reinvestigation team shifted focus to Raymond's phone, a data source once deemed unexploitable in 2009, but now accessible via chip-off technique. This method involves physically removing the memory chip from the device board, creating a bit-level copy, and recovering data that was deleted, overwritten, or marked as unused. Raymond's phone had been stored sealed for many years. Although the battery was dead and the device would not power on, the NAND memory chip remained intact. The engineering team began by disassembling the casing, separating the board, and cleaning the chip surface before placing it in a thermal desoldering station to remove the chip. They then used a specialized reader to create a sector-by-sector data copy. Once the full copy was made, forensic software scanned all regions marked deleted for recoverable content. Within hours, the analysis team discovered evidence of multiple deleted text messages from March 2, 2009. Content completely unreadable with 2009 technology. The recovered messages, though not 100% complete, reconstructed most of the exchanges between Elise and Raymond in the 6 hours before Elise left the company, as well as some messages around 8:30 p.m. right after Elise was captured on camera leaving the office. The message content matched the old file's description of an argument, but with far greater detail. Elise questioned Raymond about using their shared bank card without informing her, regarding a charge at an auto garage for vehicle maintenance, information Raymond had never disclosed. Raymond responded defensively, and the exchange escalated when Elise mentioned Raymond dodging responsibility in certain family matters. The last recovered message before Elise arrived home read, "We'll talk tonight. Can't keep going like this." This was a message unknown to exist in 2009. The most significant portion lay in the deleted messages from approximately 8:40 to 8:55 p.m. Some segments were noisy, but the recoverable parts showed Raymond sending Elise a long message. "You can leave the house if you want, but we can't keep dragging this out. I can't take it anymore." Elise did not reply. This was the last message Raymond sent before his phone entered nearly 3 hours of silence, overlapping with the time AI detected the garage silhouette and the vehicle leaving the neighborhood. Beyond message content, the chip-off technique allowed examiners to determine deleted file locations via metadata. A small text file, deleted about 3 minutes after the final message, was recovered in fragment form. Only a few characters remained, but the title included draft, suggesting Raymond had composed but deleted a message before sending. This was significant because it proved that at the time Raymond claimed to be watching TV and not using the phone, the device was in fact actively manipulated. Additionally, the team recovered a system log showing the phone was placed in silent mode around 9 p.m. This action did not appear in prior records and could only be performed manually. It indicated Raymond deliberately silenced his phone after the tense exchange with Elise. Further deep analysis revealed multiple file timestamp anomalies, periods where the chip recorded minor memory region changes without new files being created. These changes occurred between 10:50 and 11:10 p.m., precisely when a neighbor reported hearing the garage light turn on for a few seconds. While not direct proof, it created another noteworthy coincidence between phone activity and a light-related event. From the recovered data, the cold case team began reconstructing Raymond's psychological timeline leading up to Elise's disappearance. The old file had described their argument on the night of March 2nd based solely on Raymond's statement. Now, with recovered messages, they established that the argument began in the afternoon, escalated into the evening, and continued until Elise returned home. The messages clearly showed the level of tension and conflict, including financial disagreements, Raymond's non-transparent spending, and Elise stating she would not let things continue like this. In the investigators' assessment, this content was sufficient to establish motive based on marital conflict, something the 2009 file could not prove. Furthermore, Raymond's deletion of the entire message thread that very night and setting the phone to silent mode confirmed intent to conceal or minimize traceable argument evidence and abnormal behavior compared to his usual communication habits. Upon completing the report, the analysis team drew two key conclusions. First, Raymond had a heated argument with Elise on the night she disappeared, contrary to his 2009 statement describing the evening as normal. Second, his phone showed suspicious activity at time points aligning with major video events. This data not only established a clear motive, but for the first time in over a decade, created a logical chain linking electronic behavior, timing, vehicle movement, and pre-incident argument. All these elements were absent from the original file and were obtained only through modern chip-off methods, moving the Elise Morgan case into an entirely new phase. Right after the chip-off technique recovered the message chain showing the escalating tension between Elise and Raymond on the night of the incident, the cold case team continued to exploit a data source that had been considered non-existent in 2009. OnStar's long-term archived data. In the year Elise disappeared, the OnStar system on 2008 model year vehicles only supported basic functions such as emergency assistance calls and location pings. When manually activated by the owner, Police at the time believed that if Raymond did not call OnStar, there would be no trip data. However, in 2023, while reinvestigating and reviewing OnStar's technical records, the team discovered that even without real-time location services being activated, the system automatically logged raw location pings every time the vehicle was started or turned off, then stored them on OnStar servers under a 15-year lifecycle retention policy for older vehicles. This meant that, in theory, Raymond's vehicle movements on the night of March 2nd into the early morning of March 3rd, 2009, still existed in the OnStar database, but no one had ever requested retrieval during the initial investigation. When the cold case unit submitted a formal request to OnStar to extract the archival data for the 2008 Ford Escape owned by Raymond Doyle, the response confirmed that the system had logged ping data exactly on the night of the incident. This was a major breakthrough, as for the first time in over a decade, investigators could track Raymond's vehicle movements with sufficient accuracy to reconstruct the journey. The return data came as a series of timestamps with coordinates, each ping recorded when the vehicle was powered on, powered off, or experienced a location sensor change. The analysis team imported all the information into investigative mapping software to rebuild the route. The first point in the sequence was the vehicle's position at Raymond's home at 2:57 a.m., matching the camera footage showing the silhouette in the garage. This signal was marked as an engine on event, indicating the vehicle was started very close to the 3 a.m. mark, completely contradicting Raymond's 2009 statement that he did not use the vehicle that night. The next ping appeared at 3:18 a.m. on West Park Tollway, heading toward Katy, about 12 miles from Elise's home. This data showed the vehicle in motion, not stopped abruptly or circling within the neighborhood. The analysis team marked this point as departure from the residential area westward, consistent with routes leading to numerous undeveloped lots expanded during 2008-2010 construction projects. The third ping occurred at 3:27 a.m. at an intersection near Barker Cypress Road, a sparsely trafficked spot at that hour, right on the edge of a construction site. Here, OnStar recorded the vehicle slowing to a very low speed. Although pings could not determine exact speed, the system classified the event as a low-movement cluster, typically occurring when a vehicle turns onto a side road or travels slowly over uneven ground. Investigators noted this as a possible point where the vehicle left the main road to enter the construction area. The most critical ping occurred at 3:33 a.m. This was an engine off event. The vehicle had come to a complete stop and was turned off. The coordinates placed it in an undeveloped lot west of Katy, not yet built on in 2009, approximately 18 miles from Elise's neighborhood. OnStar logged the power-off event but did not record video or audio of the area, so police had no knowledge of what happened after 3:33 a.m., only that Raymond's vehicle had stopped at this location. Notably, there were no pings between 3:33 a.m. and 4:12 a.m., indicating the vehicle remained stationary in the vacant lot for about 39 minutes, a duration far too long to be considered a routine stop, especially during the time Raymond claimed he was sleeping at home. The next ping was an engine on at 4:12 a.m. at the same location, showing the vehicle was restarted and preparing to leave the lot. The subsequent route headed back east, with a ping at 4:29 a.m. on West Park Tollway, matching the return to the residential area. The final ping was engine off at Raymond's home at 4:46 a.m. Area cameras did not capture the vehicle's return, but OnStar data confirmed it was back in the garage position. This created a complete kinematic sequence: engine start at 2:57, departure from the neighborhood around 3 o'clock. 3:02, arrival in Katy at 3:33, stationary for nearly 40 minutes, then returned before dawn. When cross-referenced with the AI-enhanced video reconstruction, the timing coincidence became highly suspicious. The SUV left the neighborhood exactly when the silhouette appeared in the garage and returned before neighbors woke up. At the same time, during the period the vehicle was stationary in Katie, Raymond's phone, based on chip-off data, showed no activity whatsoever, consistent with an open lot area with weak cell coverage where the device could not send or receive signals. When the analysis team synthesized the data, they flagged the Katy vacant lot as a location potentially directly related to Elise Morgan's disappearance, as it was the only place Raymond's vehicle appeared outside the residential area that entire night. The special investigation team noted that the engine-off event was precisely the type of data that 2009 technology could not access. It was completely absent from the original case file. The fact that OnStar retained long-term ping events surprised even the cold case team, as it opened the possibility of backtracking a vehicle journey previously regarded as an information black hole for 14 years. Combined with the message chain recovered from chip-off, the inconsistencies in Raymond's 2009 statement became glaring. He claimed to be home all night, yet OnStar data proved the vehicle traveled nearly 40 miles during the window of Elise's disappearance. With the vehicle's prolonged stop at the Katy vacant lot precisely matching the time of Elise's disappearance and aligning perfectly with suspicious activity from the AI video and phone data, the investigation team marked this discovery as the most significant technical advance since the case was reopened. When the OnStar data was recovered and showed Raymond's vehicle leaving home at the critical moment on the night Elise disappeared, the reinvestigation team returned to witness re-interviews to check whether the new technical data could be corroborated with real-world observations in the 2009 neighborhood. The goal was not to find entirely new statements, memories after 14 years could be faded, but to determine whether details once deemed unimportant at the time could become relevant when placed alongside the new data. The first re-interviewed witness was the neighbor living directly across from Elise's house, who had reported seeing the garage light come on during the night of March 2nd. When asked again, the witness admitted not remembering the exact time, but still believed the garage light was only on for a few seconds, then went off right away. The investigation team compared this description with the AI upgraded video data and noted the match in the duration of the light's appearance. When asked about any sounds that night, the witness recalled hearing a pretty hard door closing just before the garage light came on, but in 2009, they thought it was from the neighboring house. Lacking any basis to connect it, the detail was not included in the original report. But when aligned with the OnStar engine on event timestamp, the cold case team realized the sound the witness described could align with the garage door opening or closing before Raymond's vehicle left. The second witness, living at the end of the block, had mentioned hearing something like an object falling that night, but was uncertain of the source. In the re-interview, the person described the sound as similar to a heavy object hitting the floor or wall, not footsteps. The timing they recalled was right in the middle of the night, before the neighborhood went completely quiet. The reinvestigation team compared this statement with Raymond's phone activity, specifically the unusual timestamps in the chip-off memory from 10:50 to 11:10 p.m., coinciding with when the neighbor reported hearing the falling object. Although a direct link could not be concluded, the timing match was sufficient to add the statement to the supplemental file. Another witness, 2 houses away, had reported seeing strange low flickering light through Elise's window around 10 p.m., but heard no noise. In the re-interview, the witness said the light didn't look like indoor house lights because it was moving. But after 14 years, they were unsure whether it was vehicle headlights reflecting or just streetlight shadows. Though the memory was hazy, the detail of moving light was noted because it aligned with AI results showing slight movement in the garage silhouette before 3 a.m. However, due to the time discrepancy, the investigation team used this statement only to consider possible movement inside Elise's house that evening. Another witness, who had not been deeply interviewed in 2009 because they were thought to have no relevant information, now reported hearing a car door closing around dawn. When asked if they were sure it was a vehicle in the neighborhood or on the main road, the witness said the sound didn't sound like a car speeding on the main road. It sounded closer. OnStar data confirmed Raymond's vehicle engine start at 2:57 a.m. and garage departure very close to the time described. When cross-referenced with vehicle speed and garage position, the investigation team assessed this account as likely the sound of Raymond's vehicle leaving, especially since the neighborhood was very quiet at that hour, and vehicle sounds carried clearly. After collecting all the supplemental statements, the cold case team analyzed the consistency of the descriptions. They observed that although witness memories had changed over time, the four clusters of information tended to converge: loud noises before midnight, unusual light or movement in the garage light on for a few seconds, and a vehicle leaving before dawn. These descriptions had been rated irrelevant in 2009 due to the lack of technical data to cross-reference. But in the 2023 context, with the full new data system integrated, the witness statements became connecting pieces that reinforced the logical timeline of the investigation. One investigator noted that the most important aspect was not the absolute accuracy of each account, but the common pattern. Witnesses who did not know each other all described small disruptions during the night. Elise disappeared, strange sounds, lights, garage movement, and a vehicle leaving the neighborhood. All of it aligned with the AI and OnStar data. After synthesis, the cold case team concluded that the tension on the evening of March 2nd had not occurred in absolute silence as the 2009 file described. In reality, there had been sound and light disruptions consistent with vehicle activity and garage movement. These supplemental data points, when combined, helped eliminate the possibility that Elise left the house voluntarily without anyone seeing or hearing anything. Re-interviewing witnesses, though not yielding independent breakthrough details, reinforced the consistency of the newly reconstructed technical event chain, providing a foundation to formally shift the investigation to the next phase. After re-interviewing witnesses and establishing matches between descriptions of light, sounds, and the timing of the vehicle leaving the garage, the re-investigation team moved to deeper technical analysis, 3D reconstruction of movement inside the garage. This technology allowed recreating the entire garage space to real dimensions, then inserting the AI-enhanced video silhouette data into the model to determine body shape, relative height, movement speed, and direction. The first step in the simulation process was remeasuring the entire garage structure from 2009 crime scene photos: width, depth, ceiling light position, garage door position, floor elevation, and items noted in the original report. The CSI team used specialized software to rebuild the virtual space with accuracy to the inch. Next, they imported the AI super resolution, processed video frames, especially those showing the silhouette near the garage door. Since the across-the-street camera recorded from an oblique angle, the technical team applied perspective correction to ensure the silhouette was placed in the correct corresponding position in 3D space. Once the model was complete, CSI began reconstructing movement using motion trace techniques, analyzing pixel changes within the silhouette. They identified two main movements: first a lean to the left, then a bend downward over about 0.7 seconds. These movements were represented as 3D vectors, forming a simulated motion path in space. To check whether the silhouette matched Raymond's height and body structure, the CSI team input Raymond Doyle's anthropometric data from the 2009 file: height 5'10 inches, 1.78 m, shoulder width 48 centimeters, arm length 63 centimeters. They also entered gait and stance data obtained from Raymond's provided videos that year. The 3D skeleton fitting software ran, automatically aligning body joint points in the silhouette with Raymond's parameters. When analyzing silhouette height, the model calculated an estimated height range of 5'8 inches to 6'0 inches, 1.73, 1.82 m, within the allowable error margin for reconstruction techniques, and a perfect match with Raymond's height. Shoulder width analysis of the dark region at shoulder level showed a ratio close to 1.9, very close to Raymond's documented shoulder structure. When running arm length comparison, the software identified that the shadow arm length in the video fell within the range for someone of Raymond's height, ruling out a silhouette belonging to someone under 5'5" inches, 1.65 m, or over 6'3" inches, 1.90 m. A key factor was the downward bend analysis. The software determined that the way the silhouette bent exhibited characteristics of a right-handed person, weight shifted to the left foot, right shoulder dropping lower than the left in the moment of bending, and the back curve tilting rightward. Raymond was documented as right-handed in the 2009 investigation file. This increased the match probability, as bending to pick up an object or look down often clearly reflects handedness habits. The CSI team conducted an additional verification step, recording Raymond moving in a garage with investigators to measure stance, weight shift rhythm, and shoulder motion trajectory. They then built a virtual skeleton from this video for comparison with the silhouette model. When the two models were overlaid in 3D space, the technical team noted very high similarity in how the body's center of mass moved during the leftward lean. Raymond tended to lean his entire body rather than just turning his neck or shoulders, and this movement matched the silhouette's vector in the 3am video. However, through 3D simulation, the team also discovered a detail invisible to the naked eye: the distance between the silhouette and the garage door edge. The silhouette was 22-26 centimeters from the door edge when bending down, a distance consistent with someone reaching for an object near the floor while standing inside the garage, not from outside. This reinforced the conclusion that the silhouette was inside the garage, not a passerby illuminated by vehicle headlights as hypothesized in 2009. Additionally, the 3D simulation allowed determination of the silhouette's head direction by increasing local brightness and analyzing shadows. The software derived a face vector tilted toward the garage door, not outward to the street. This is a common trait when someone is preparing to open the door or look outside before moving. After compiling all parameters, height, shoulder width, bending trajectory, lean direction, center of mass position, and distance to the door, the 3D reconstruction system produced a result, 86-91% probability that the silhouette matched Raymond Doyle's size and movement behavior. Though not absolute proof, this was a high percentage for motion analysis from analog video. The CSI report noted that the 3D simulation ruled out the silhouette belonging to someone significantly shorter or taller than Raymond, while matching his entire documented body profile. More importantly, the motion vector analysis showed the silhouette was not a random passerby, but someone actively operating inside the garage, a location only someone living in the house could occupy at 3 a.m. Thanks to this motion simulation, the reinvestigation team for the first time had technical grounds to directly compare the silhouette with Raymond, narrowing the suspect pool to the single individual present in the house the night Elise disappeared. When the 3D motion simulation is complete, and the silhouette in the garage is determined to have a high probability of matching Raymond's body characteristics, the cold case reinvestigation team moves to the step of synthesizing all data to reconstruct the timeline from the afternoon of March 2, 2009, to the early morning of March 3, 2009, in order to assess whether Raymond possesses all three elements constituting a suspect: motive, means, and opportunity. The timeline reconstruction is performed using multi-layer analysis software, combining recovered text messages via chip-off, OnStar vehicle journey data, AI reconstructed video, witness statements, and original case files. The timeline begins at 1 p.m. on March 2, when Elise sent her last email at work, showing a normal mood with no signs of wanting to leave the city or her personal life. At 3, recovered messages show Elise sending Raymond content related to his ambiguous spending, starting a tense exchange between the two. Around 5 p.m. Raymond sent a message with an irritated tone, mentioning "can't take it anymore," clearly indicating escalating conflict. From 6:30 p.m. to 7:50 p.m., messages between them continuously contained criticism, with Elise demanding to talk it out for good when he got home. Around 8 p.m., company cameras recorded Elise leaving work in a hurry, and she made no further contact with anyone afterward. This was also when Raymond sent his longest message, showing an agitated mental state, before the entire message chain was deleted from his phone, according to chip-off data. After 8:30 p.m., Elise's phone went completely silent, with no further calls or messages. From 10:50 p.m. to 11:10 p.m., a witness heard a heavy object falling or loud impact from the direction of Elise's house, coinciding with the period when Raymond's phone memory chip recorded abnormal activity despite no user input. From 11 p.m. to 2:50 a.m., there was no evidence whatsoever that Elise left the house, no exterior lights, no cameras capturing movement, no vehicle leaving the driveway, and all of Elise's personal belongings remained intact at the scene. At this point, the reinvestigation team concluded that she did not leave by personal vehicle, did not walk out of the neighborhood, and did not contact anyone, completely contrary to her stable daily habits. At 2:57 a.m., OnStar data recorded Raymond's vehicle engine starting, directly contradicting his 2009 statement that he slept from 11 p.m. until the next morning. During the same time frame, AI reconstructed video from the neighbor's camera captured the silhouette of a man standing inside Elise's garage, moving to observe and bending down for about 0.7 seconds. Movements identified as matching Raymond's body characteristics through 3D reconstruction simulation. From 3:03 a.m., a neighbor's camera recorded an SUV leaving the driveway with headlight clusters and roofline matching Raymond's vehicle at 94.2%. By 3:18 a.m., OnStar recorded the vehicle on West Park Tollway, heading toward Katy. At 3:33 a.m., the vehicle shut off in an empty lot, and location unrelated to work, not part of his routine routes, and 18 miles from the residential area, where it remained stationary for nearly 40 minutes. The investigation team determined that this period, in terms of behavior and context, was highly unusual. At 4:12 a.m., the vehicle restarted and headed back home. At 4:46 a.m., it shut off in the garage. A witness described hearing a vehicle arrive around near dawn, matching the OnStar timestamp. When compiling all the timestamps, the cold case team observed that no gap existed sufficient for Elise to have left the house on her own. All data converged on one unified conclusion: Elise disappeared within a short window after 8:30 p.m. And the only person present, with conflict, with means to leave, with concealing behavior, and with signs of deception, was Raymond. The investigation team continued evaluating the three suspect elements: motive, financial disputes, marital arguments, threatening messages, all established via chip-off texts, means presence in the house, access to Elise, personal vehicle. 3 dead simulation data showing the silhouette match with Raymond. Opportunity, appearance in the garage, vehicle leaving the house exactly when Elise ceased contact, stopping at an empty lot for nearly 40 minutes, then returning before dawn. All 3 elements were satisfied, with OnStar data and 3 dead simulation considered key evidence in restructuring the entire case. When the new timeline was integrated into the old file, previously insignificant details became complete puzzle pieces: noises, lights, garage lights, phone silence, message deletion behavior, and the mysterious trip. Everything pointed in one direction. The cold case team concluded that the Elise Morgan case now had sufficient legal and technical grounds to move to the execution phase, preparing an arrest warrant for Raymond Doyle as the primary suspect in the 2009 disappearance. Upon synthesizing all technical data, the timeline and behavioral analysis showing Raymond Doyle's presence throughout the chain of events leading to Elise's disappearance, the reinvestigation team transferred the file to the HPD Legal Division to prepare for obtaining an arrest warrant. Since Elise's body has not been located, a murder charge could not yet be applied, but the existing evidence was sufficient to constitute 2 independent offenses: tampering with evidence based on deleting messages, altering devices, moving the vehicle at night to conceal traces, along with OnStar data showing the stop at the empty lot, and kidnapping unlawful restraint, based on the chain of events, proving Elise did not leave voluntarily, did not use any vehicle, did not take personal property, and showed no signs of leaving her normal life, while Raymond was the only person with opportunity to access her at the time of disappearance. The arrest warrant application was drafted within 2 days, accompanied by 14 data appendices, reconstructed timeline, AI reconstructed video, silhouette analysis, phone chip-off data, full OnStar journey, supplemental witness statements, 3D reconstruction report, and motive evaluation. Harris County Court reviewed the file in a closed hearing and concluded that the investigation team had demonstrated reasonable belief that Raymond interfered with evidence and played a direct role in Elise's disappearance on the night of March 2, 2009. The warrant was signed at 11:42 a.m. including authority to seize the 2008 Ford Escape and to search Raymond's workplace at Ellington Field, Air National Guard Base, where he worked in the Civilian Aviation Technical Division. The HPD tactical team coordinated with federal support units because Raymond worked on a military installation requiring warrant execution to follow security protocols. An approach plan was developed to apprehend Raymond upon leaving the secured Ellington Field area to avoid executing inside the military zone. Surveillance teams followed Raymond from midday. He drove his 2017 sedan to the base on his usual schedule. While Raymond was working, the team completed identity verification, checked access card systems, and prepared an intercept point at the north side gate, which had lower traffic. At 17:08, security cameras recorded Raymond leaving the building and walking quickly to his vehicle. The surveillance team signaled, and the intercept group moved into position. As Raymond turned out of the main gate, military police were notified but did not intervene, allowing HPD to handle the civilian warrant. About 40 meters after Raymond's vehicle cleared the control area, 2 unmarked HPD vehicles closed in, one blocking front, one boxing rear. Raymond braked hard, appearing confused and unaware of the situation. Investigators exited their vehicles, ordered Raymond to lower his window and place his hands outside. He was immediately informed of the arrest. Raymond Doyle, you are under arrest pursuant to a Harris County Court warrant on 2 charges: tampering with evidence and kidnapping in connection with the 2009 disappearance of Elise Morgan. Raymond appeared bewildered, asking, "What's this about? That was over a decade ago." But investigators firmly ordered him out of the vehicle, to turn around, and place his hands behind his head. Handcuffing took place within 10 seconds, after which he was placed in the investigative vehicle and driven away from Ellington Field. Simultaneously, another team arrived at his workplace on base to collect items, particularly the computer he used daily. Almost at the same time, a search warrant was executed at Raymond's Houston residence. Forensic teams examined the 2008 Ford Escape, the most critical piece of evidence, and sealed the garage pending further scene analysis. Upon arrival at HPD headquarters, Raymond remained silent, only asking if he needed a lawyer. Investigators informed him of his right to remain silent, and his right to an attorney during questioning. Raymond nodded but made no statements. For HPD, Raymond's arrest marked a major turning point in the Elise Morgan case. As for the first time in 14 years, they could shift from an unsolved missing person case to a criminal case with a specific suspect based on a seamless chain of behavioral, digital, and deceptive evidence. As Raymond stepped through the interrogation room door, the Elise Morgan case officially moved into the criminal prosecution phase after more than a decade in cold case storage. When Raymond was escorted into the HPD interrogation room, he maintained near total silence, avoiding eye contact with investigators and repeatedly staring down at the cold steel table. Investigators read the Miranda rights slowly and clearly, asking Raymond to confirm understanding of each right. He only nodded and immediately stated he wanted an attorney present before answering any questions. A criminal defense attorney was called in that evening, and while waiting, Raymond offered no explanations or reactions regarding the arrest. Once the attorney arrived, interview 1 began according to protocol, with 2 investigators, a transcriber, and Raymond's attorney present. Investigators opened by asking Raymond to recount the entire timeline of the evening of March 2, 2009, not to seek new answers, but to evaluate consistency with forensic data obtained after 14 years. Raymond repeated his original statement almost verbatim. He and Elise had dinner, then each went to their separate rooms. He watched TV until about 11 p.m., then went to sleep. He heard nothing unusual. He did not use the vehicle that night. The next morning he woke up and didn't see Elise, so he assumed she left early for work. When asked if he left the house after 11 p.m., Raymond answered firmly, "Absolutely not, I slept straight through." Investigators showed photos of his 2008 Ford Escape and asked if he used it that night. Raymond repeated, "No, the car stayed home." The attorney interjected, requesting investigators not use an accusatory tone and reminding them Raymond had answered clearly. From here, investigators began asking questions designed to directly confront Raymond's statements with forensic data. They presented copies of messages recovered from Raymond's phone via chip-off, including Elise's message, "We need to talk tonight," and Raymond's, "I can't take it anymore." When asked why these messages did not appear in the 2009 phone copy, Raymond looked at his attorney. The attorney immediately interjected, stating Raymond was not required to explain content deleted over a decade ago. But Raymond still responded, "I don't remember deleting anything. Maybe I cleaned the phone. It's unrelated to Elise." This directly contradicted his 2009 statement that the phone had no special exchanges that night. When investigators asked about the final message sent at 8:55 p.m., deleted immediately after sending, per chip-off analysis, Raymond declined to answer, and his attorney declared the question inappropriate as it leads to no new evidence. Investigators moved to OnStar data. They placed a printout of the vehicle journey in front of Raymond. Engine start at 2:57 a.m. right in his garage, travel to the Katy area at 3:18 a.m. 39-minute stop at a vacant lot, return home at 4:46 a.m. When asked to explain this trip, Raymond reacted most strongly during the interview. "I don't know where that system got its data. My car didn't go anywhere." The attorney requested the question be stopped, arguing OnStar was not absolute proof, and that his client does not confirm the validity of that dataset. Nevertheless, investigators emphasized the impossibility. If Raymond slept all night as claimed, who drove the vehicle out exactly when Elise disappeared? Raymond replied in an impatient tone, "I don't know. Maybe the system recorded wrong. I didn't go anywhere." When investigators referenced the AI reconstructed video showing a silhouette in the garage matching Raymond's build, he clenched both fists, but repeated, "I don't know who that is. My house didn't have good security. Maybe someone broke in." This statement prompted investigators to immediately counter with 2009 forensic data, no pry marks on doors, no unfamiliar footprints, no disturbed items. Raymond fell silent. The attorney interjected, requesting investigators stop asking conclusory questions. When asked to explain why his phone went silent exactly during the vehicle's stop at the vacant lot, Raymond answered, "I already said. I was sleeping." And when questioned about deleting all messages before 9 p.m., he said, "That was personal, unrelated to the disappearance." Investigators noted this as the most contradictory response of the entire interview, as the message content showed direct argument and tension between them right before Elise vanished. The interview lasted nearly 3 hours and ended without any confession or reasonable explanation from Raymond. All he offered was absolute denial, despite forensic data completely contradicting his statements. The attorney declared Raymond would answer no further and requested the session end. Investigators recorded in the report that the current statement lacks logical consistency, is incompatible with digital data, and contains numerous clear points of deception when compared to OnStar journey, AI video, and device analysis. Raymond returned to holding in silence, but for HPD, his answers were no longer as important as the contradictions he left in every word. Each denial only reinforced that the entire 2009 story could not be true. The first interview established one fact: Raymond Doyle would not cooperate, and his failure to provide any reasonable explanation officially placed him as the central suspect in the Elise Morgan case. When the second interrogation began, Raymond entered the room looking noticeably more tense than the day before. His attorney came along as well, sitting close beside him and continuously observing every move the investigators made. Unlike the first interrogation, where Raymond mainly denied any involvement, this time the cold case team shifted tactics to direct confrontation with digital evidence, presenting each reconstructed data segment with high accuracy to create psychological pressure and force Raymond into a position where he could no longer maintain the same story. The investigator did not start with a question, but with a large screen placed in front of Raymond. On it was the OnStar journey map image showing the vehicle leaving his garage at 2:57 a.m., heading toward Katy and stopping for 39 minutes in an open field. Raymond immediately leaned back, his eyes fixed on the screen but saying nothing. The investigator asked him to confirm whether he saw the 2:57 a.m. marker. The attorney interjected, reminding the investigator that he could not ask the client to confirm the accuracy or inaccuracy of evidence. However, the investigator explained that the question was only to confirm whether he could see the information displayed on the screen, not to admit to any conduct. Raymond replied in a low voice, "I see it." The investigator moved to the second segment, a video from the camera across the street, enhanced by AI, where the silhouette of a man standing in the garage appeared much clearer than in the original. They slowed down the video and displayed a 3D reconstruction simulation right beside it, showing motion vectors, height, and shoulder structure matching Raymond's body. A red line appeared, marking the similarity between the silhouette and the simulation. "How do you explain this man?" the investigator asked. Raymond looked at his attorney, stayed silent for a few seconds, then said, "I don't know how someone could have gotten into the garage. My house wasn't secure back then." The investigator responded immediately. The garage door showed no signs of prying, no unusual marks, no footprints outside the family's. Inside it was only you and Elise. Raymond did not argue, only clenched his hands tighter. Next, the investigator placed before Raymond printouts of text messages recovered via chip-off. These were messages completely deleted back in 2009, now fully restored. Elise demanding talk tonight, Raymond responding, "I can't take this anymore," followed by a tense chain of messages continuing until Elise left the office. When the investigator asked why he deleted the entire thread that very night, Raymond tried to keep his voice calm. I don't know, I don't remember." The investigator did not stop, but moved straight to the most critical part. "The last message you sent at 8:55 p.m. said you can leave the house if you want, but this can't go on forever. Why did you delete that message right after sending it?" The attorney raised his hand to stop the question, but Raymond unexpectedly spoke first. "That was between husband and wife," we argued. For the first time in the interrogation process, Raymond admitted to verbal conflict. The investigator noted it, but did not let up. Instead, they displayed a compiled timeline on the screen, text message data, OnStar data, AI camera footage, garage simulation, and witness statements, all stitched into a seamless sequence. The investigator read each line slowly. 20:55, you sent a tense message. 21 o'clock. 23 o'clock, neighbors heard banging sounds. 2:57, your vehicle started. 3:18, vehicle on West Park. 3:33, your vehicle stopped for 39 minutes at the open field. 4:46, you returned home. Elise never appeared again. Raymond sat motionless, but his expression had changed. No longer the sharp defiance of the first interrogation, now shifted to defensive tension. The investigator pressed forward. "You said you slept all night, but the 3D model matches your gait by 91%. Your vehicle left the house exactly when Elise disappeared. How do you explain that?" Raymond exhaled heavily, avoiding the screen. The attorney requested a 3-minute break to confer privately, and during that time they spoke in hushed tones, with Raymond repeatedly raising his hand to cover his face. When they returned, the attorney stated that Raymond was prepared to clarify certain points to avoid misunderstanding. The investigator asked again, "Did you leave your bedroom after 11 p.m.?" Raymond was silent for a moment, then said, "I did go down to the garage." This was the first time he admitted leaving the bedroom, contradicting his statement for the past 14 years. "Why did you go to the garage?" the investigator asked. Raymond answered quietly, "I needed air." We argued. I wanted to avoid making things more tense. The investigator immediately probed, "Argued about what?"
If.
Raymond said, "Money." The way she talked, I got too heated. This was the first admission of actual conflict on the night Elise disappeared. But more importantly, the investigator continued, "When you went down to the garage, what happened between you and Elise?" Raymond looked at his attorney. The attorney said, "He will only answer within the scope that does not incriminate himself." But Raymond spoke up before the attorney could stop him. "We had a big argument. She followed me down to the garage. I didn't want to continue, but she kept talking a lot. I lost control." The investigator asked, "Lost control means what?" Raymond looked down, voice low. "I pushed her. Just once. I didn't think she would." He stopped, breathing heavily, not finishing the sentence. The investigator did not let the silence linger, and immediately asked, "Did she fall?" Raymond gave a slight nod, without speaking. This was the first crack in Raymond's narrative, and the first time he admitted to physical contact on the night Elise went missing. The attorney immediately requested to terminate the interrogation, stating that his client would answer no further questions. But for the investigative team, the second interrogation had achieved its goal, breaking through the layer of absolute denial, forcing Raymond to shift from no involvement to admitting conflict, presence in the garage, and pushing Elise on the very night she disappeared, all paving the way for the next phase of the investigation. When the third interrogation resumed, the atmosphere in the room had clearly changed. Raymond no longer sat upright or held a challenging gaze as in the previous 2 sessions. Instead, he sat hunched low, hands tightly clasped together, repeatedly staring down at the cold metal table. His attorney was still present, but this time he remained quieter, perhaps realizing his client could no longer sustain the denial narrative after admitting to the push during the second interrogation. The investigator entered carrying a thick file folder, and the large screen behind already displayed the compiled timeline. One that, in this session, they would confront minute by minute, fact by fact, to force Raymond to face reality. Elise could not have vanished without his intervention, and every piece of evidence pointed to a single destination. Without waiting for Raymond to settle, the investigator opened directly, "You already admitted to arguing. You already admitted to pushing Elise in the garage. We are getting closer to the truth, but Elise never came back after that night. And only one person drove the vehicle to the open field in Katy. Now you will explain the rest." Raymond swallowed hard, his hand trembling slightly. The attorney leaned over to whisper, reminding him not to incriminate himself. But the investigator continued, this time not questioning but presenting. They played the AI reconstructed video of the silhouette moving in the garage at 2:57 a.m., the moment the SUV's headlights reflected off the door, and the figure leaned left, then bent down. Raymond closed his eyes, as if trying to avoid the sight. The investigator said, "This is you, no one else. You lied for 14 years. But technology is now strong enough to bring the truth back." The attorney objected. There is no 100% confirmation, but the investigator did not need confirmation. They switched to the OnStar map. Each timestamp was displayed on screen. 2:57 a.m. engine start, 3:18 a.m. on West Park Tollway, 3:33 a.m. stop at the Katy open field, stationary for 39 minutes, 4:12 a.m. engine restart, 4:46 a.m. back home. The investigator pointed to the 3:33 a.m. marker and said, Elise never made contact after 8:30 p.m. She did not leave the house. She did not go anywhere on her own. You were the only one who left the house, and your vehicle stopped here. You were there for nearly 40 minutes. Why? Raymond did not answer, but his hands began clenching harder, knuckles turning white. The investigator continued. If Elise was still alive when you left the house, she would have called someone. If she left the house, the camera would have captured it. If she walked away, she would have taken her wallet, keys, or vehicle. None of that happened. She never left this house on her own 2 feet. Raymond straightened slightly, took a deep breath, but remained silent. The investigator shifted tactics, now going straight to psychology. You said you pushed Elise. You said she fell. We have witnesses who heard a heavy thud. We have your phone data dropping into radio silence. We have garage video. We have the vehicle journey. We have everything except your final confirmation. The attorney requested a pause, arguing that the investigator was making deductive arguments. But the investigator simply turned and said, "We don't need to deduce. All the data has filled the gaps. Only the location where you took Elise is missing." Raymond began breathing rapidly, a clear sign of psychological pressure as he was surrounded by an unrelenting chain of forensic data with no escape. The investigator placed a Katy map in front of him, circling the open field area where OnStar recorded the vehicle stopping for 39 minutes. Do you want Elise's family to find her body so they can give her a proper burial? Or do you want them to spend the rest of their lives not knowing? This question made Raymond lift his head for the first time in the session, eyes red and strained. The attorney interjected again, instructing his client not to answer. But the investigator changed tone, speaking low and slowly. "Raymond, we've looked into it. This open field in 2009 had nothing built on it. Now it's a residential area. If Elise's body is there, sooner or later an excavator will dig it up. And when that happens, every trace will lead straight to you. If you cooperate right now, the court will take that into consideration to a certain extent. If not, you will face full responsibility alone." Raymond closed his eyes, leaned back as if the weight of 14 years was pressing on his chest. Silence stretched for nearly a minute. The attorney whispered, "Don't answer any more, Raymond." But Raymond shook his head, so slightly that only the investigator heard. The investigator gently placed a finger on the map, exactly at the OnStar 3:33 a.m. position, and said, "Where is she?" Raymond opened his eyes, voice hoarse. I just wanted to take everything far away from the house. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I didn't mean to." The investigator did not interrupt, just waited for the next words. Raymond bowed his head deeper. "I took her to the plot in Katy. Back then it was still open land." The investigator asked, "Exact location?" Raymond raised a trembling hand and pointed to the map, right at the area where OnStar recorded the stop, right here, near the row of trees on the north side. I left her there." The attorney quickly stood up. "This interrogation is over. My client will answer no further." But the damage was done. Raymond had confirmed the location, and what he said matched the 2009 OnStar data down to the meter. The investigator noted in the record, "Suspect Raymond Doyle admits to taking Elise Morgan to the open field in Katy on the night of March 3, 2009. There was no longer any doubt. The search for Elise's body, after 14 years, finally had a starting point. Immediately after Raymond pinpointed the location on the Katy map, an astonishing match with the 2009 OnStar data. The cold case unit promptly forwarded the information to CSI to organize a large-scale excavation. The area Raymond marked, which had been a vast open field of dozens of acres in 2009, was now a new residential development with internal roads, landscaped green spaces, and rows of built homes. This meant the indicated position was no longer original ground, but lay beneath layers of grading, fill, and infrastructure construction spanning over a decade. This presented a major forensic challenge, yet it aligned with the investigators' earlier assessment: if Elise's body was there, it would eventually be uncovered during urban development. The CSI technical team held an emergency meeting that very night, coordinating with the Harris County District Attorney's Office to obtain a full excavation warrant for the area within a 60-meter radius of the OnStar 3:33 a.m. position. The next morning, while it was still dark, a team of more than 30 people, CSI Maine's office staff, Forensic Archaeology Unit, K-9 Cadaver Detection Team, and GIS personnel, arrived at the scene. They cordoned off the small newly completed park within the residential area, set up tents, laid tarps, and established excavation boundaries by stratigraphic layer. The Forensic Archaeology Group began using GPR equipment to scan the soil layers, seeking any anomalies in the subsurface structure, old dig sites, disturbed or unnaturally settled soil. Within just 40 minutes of scanning, GPR detected an ellipsoid disturbance area approximately 1.7 meters long and 60-80 centimeters deep, located right at the edge of a row of trees, exactly as Raymond described in the interrogation. This was a classic signature of a backfilled grave containing a large object. CSI marked the entire zone with reflective stakes and began peeling back soil layers using standard forensic excavation protocol, 5 centimeters at a time, recording depth, soil color, compaction, and any foreign objects encountered. By the third layer, the K-9 team registered a strong hit precisely at the GPR-marked spot. The scent dogs dug intensely at the pit's edge, displaying characteristic behavior for detecting residual old decomposition odor bound in soil particles. This prompted the CSI commander to expand the excavation area by an additional 2 meters in all 4 directions to ensure no bone fragments or evidence displaced over time were missed. When the 4th soil layer was removed, one technician spotted a small ivory-white fragment the size of a fingertip, but with distinctive porous structure. It was immediately identified on-site as human bone, likely a phalange or metatarsal fragment. This confirmed they had reached the burial area. The forensic team immediately switched to specialized skeletal recovery protocol. They used small trowels, soft brushes, and low-power vacuum hoses to avoid fracturing or displacing bones. Gradually, a larger cluster emerged, pelvic bones, and a connected segment of spine. As surrounding soil was carefully cleared, the skeleton's size became evident, consistent with an adult female, estimated height around 1.60 m, fully matching Elise Morgan's described build. When the entire burial area was widened, they uncovered additional femurs, humeri, ribs, and the skull positioned about half a meter from the torso, indicating the body had undergone decomposition in an open environment with minor shifting over time. Notably, the skull showed a clear fracture in the left temporal region, a semicircular crack with clean but forceful impact edges from a hard object. On-site preliminary sketching indicated this was ante-mortem or peri-mortem trauma, occurring before or at the moment of death. This carried significant legal weight, as it could not have resulted from later soil weight or construction machinery. In addition to human remains, they found related evidence: an oxidized metal zipper fragment, 2 heavily degraded polyester fabric pieces still retaining weave structure, a rubber fragment identified as shoe sole material, and a small plastic piece bearing the letter E. Matching the branding symbol of the running shoes Elise was known to wear according to coworkers. All were tagged, photographed, measured, and placed in separate evidence trays by case number. Additionally, at 70 centimeters depth, technicians found a small streak of black charcoal residue indicating partial burning of organic material before burial. Cross-referenced with Raymond's initial statement about wanting to take everything far from the house and OnStar data showing prolonged stop at the field, CSI flagged this as possible evidence of an unsuccessful attempt to incinerate and conceal. Another key detail emerged upon examining the left humerus. The proximal end showed wear, not from natural decomposition, but from prolonged friction against a hard surface. This supported the hypothesis that the body had been placed in a confined space before burial. In one corner of the pit, near the foot bones, they discovered a thin metal ring, likely a zipper pull or drawstring toggle from a jacket or gym bag. Though heavily rusted, the shape was still recognizable. This raised suspicion within the team that Elise had been transported to the field inside some container before being removed and buried. Once the full skeleton was recovered, the ME's office conducted preliminary anatomical arrangement to assess integrity. Most bones were present, with only minor portions of hand bones and some rib fragments missing. This indicated the remains had not been entirely disturbed by animals, only lightly affected after prolonged exposure to natural conditions. The preliminary forensic report drafted on-site stated one skeleton consistent with female height matching Elise, 2 skull fracture indicates impact from hard object. 3 wear marks show body placed in confined space prior to burial. 4 bone distribution and decomposition level consistent with 14-year time frame. 5 associated evidence matches description of Elise's clothing on day of disappearance. As the final evidence was packaged and transported to the lab, the lead investigator stood beside the fully excavated grave, a silent patch of earth now holding the answers they had sought for years. There was no longer any doubt they had found Elise Morgan, and with these remains, the case shifted from an indefinite missing persons file to a fully formed criminal investigation, where all forensic data, digital timelines, and Raymond's statements converged into a single, unified conclusion. The recovered skeleton would not only close a painful 14-year chapter, but also open a new legal phase, one in which no evidence Raymond could deny remained. Right after the skeletal remains were recovered and transferred to the examination room of the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office, the forensic team began the victim identification process using DNA methods, in which 2 key techniques were deployed in parallel: mtDNA analysis for maternal lineage comparison and nuclear STR analysis if the genetic material was still of sufficient quality. Because the remains had been buried in soil for 14 years, most soft tissue had completely decomposed, and the bones had become brittle and mineralized, posing a high risk that STR would not be sufficiently intact. Therefore, the forensic team decided to prioritize mtDNA, a type of DNA that exists in high copy numbers in mitochondria, is far more durable than nuclear DNA, and can persist in bones for many decades. They selected 3 sampling sites: 1 the left femur, known for high stability and minimal environmental impact; 2 the right humerus, where the dried marrow still retained its original structure; 3 the lower molar, a sample type that typically preserves mtDNA the best. Each bone sample was cleaned using ultrasonic plasma to remove adhering soil and mineral layers, then subjected to cryogenic grinding with liquid nitrogen to obtain pure bone powder. The forensic team used DNA extraction with EDTA solution combined with proteinase K to release the mitochondrial chains from accumulated minerals. Once the raw DNA solution was obtained, they ran PCR to amplify the HVI and HVCA regions, 2 highly variable regions of mtDNA commonly used for individual identification and maternal line comparison. The amplification results showed strong signals for both HVI and HVCAD, confirming that mitochondrial DNA was still of sufficient quality to generate a genetic profile. This data was fed into a next-generation sequencer to reconstruct the full mtDNA haplotype of the remains. For comparison, the investigation team contacted Elise's family on the day of the exhumation and collected buccal swab samples from Elise's biological mother and sister, creating 2 direct maternal line reference samples. The reference samples were processed that same night using standard DNA extraction methods, followed by mtDNA profiling. Once all data was available, the forensic team ran haplotype matching algorithms. In mtDNA analysis, match quality is not assessed by percentage, as with STR, but by complete sequence identity, since mtDNA is inherited intact along the maternal line. If all base positions in the HVI and HVCAD regions match perfectly between samples, the likelihood of shared maternal lineage is virtually absolute. The analysis results showed the entire HVI sequence of 342 base positions and HV-CAD sequence of 268 base positions from the remains matched 100% completely with the samples from Elise's mother and sister. There were no discrepancies, no singleton mutations, and no unreadable positions. This was a full match, the highest level result in mtDNA testing, confirming that the skeletal remains belonged to someone sharing the maternal line with Elise. To strengthen the conclusion, the forensic team attempted nuclear STR analysis on bone sites still capable of retaining nuclear DNA. They selected two common STR loci, D5S818 and TH01. Results showed partial amplification only for the D5S818 locus, but when compared to Elise's sister's STR profile, the single remaining allele matched. However, due to the incomplete STR profile, the strongest evidence remained the mtDNA. The official forensic report concluded the mtDNA haplotype of the recovered remains fully matches the mtDNA haplotype of Elise Morgan's mother and sister. Based on this result, the identity of the remains can be confirmed as Elise Morgan with high certainty. The report also noted that the bone condition, degree of mineralization, and decomposition pattern were consistent with burial for 12-16 years, fully aligning with Elise's disappearance in 2009. Notably, the left temporal bone exhibited a characteristic fracture from heavy blunt force impact, while the fourth rib showed an old fracture with sharp edges consistent with perimortem trauma. These features allowed forensic pathologists to conclude that Elise did not die of natural causes or environmental factors, but from external force applied immediately before or at the time of death. When the report was returned to the cold case unit, the lead investigator needed only one sentence: "No doubt remains." mtDNA identification not only closed the question of whether Elise was the victim, but also became a crucial legal pivot to advance the case to criminal indictment, as confirming the body as Elise turned all evidence related to the burial site, injuries, and concealment into direct evidence against Raymond Doyle. With the DNA firmly established, the 2009 missing persons case officially became a fully documented homicide under 2023 forensic standards. The trial of Raymond Doyle opened in the fall of 2023 at Harris County Court in an atmosphere of heavy tension extending from the hallways to courtroom 9B, where a 12-person jury was impaneled to decide the defendant's fate after 14 years since Elise Morgan's disappearance. As soon as opening procedures concluded, the prosecution announced they would present one of the most comprehensive forensic timelines ever seen in a Houston cold case, spanning from 2009 to 2023, aimed at proving that the entire chain of events, from argument, disappearance, vehicle movement, burial and concealment, to discovery of remains, was continuous, logical, and could only have occurred if Raymond was the perpetrator. The prosecution began with the 2009 timeline. Elise left the office at 8 p.m. The tense text message chain between her and Raymond recovered via chip-off, unusual silence from Elise's phone, starting at 8:30 p.m. Neighbor witness hearing thumping sounds between 10:50 and 11:10 p.m. All were displayed via forensic graphics with annotations from original records. The prosecution emphasized that in 2009, this data was insufficient to connect due to limited technology, but by 2023, the full data chain had been reconstructed with far greater precision. Next, the prosecution presented the archived OnStar Journey Map, an exhibit that brought absolute silence to the courtroom. The large screen displayed the vehicle leaving Raymond's garage at 2:57 a.m., heading toward Katy at 3:18 a.m., stopping at a vacant lot for 39 minutes at 3:33 a.m., and returning at 4:46 a.m. The prosecution explained that OnStar retains engine on-off pings for a 15-year vehicle life cycle, and Raymond's vehicle movement in the middle of the night directly contradicted his statement of sleeping from 11 p.m. until the next morning. They called an OnStar expert to the stand to detail the ping mechanism and confirm data accuracy. The prosecution then moved to AI-enhanced video evidence. They played the neighbor's home camera footage restored via AI super resolution, clearly showing a male silhouette standing in the garage exactly when the vehicle lights came on. A parallel 3D reconstruction simulation was displayed to prove the silhouette's height, shoulder width, and movement trajectory matched Raymond Doyle's physical characteristics. The AI expert explained the algorithm's motion reconstruction and why the silhouette could not be a passerby, given its position and body angle entirely within the garage. When the video reached the point where the silhouette bent down, with clear weight shift cadence and characteristic rightward lean, several jurors exchanged tense glances. The prosecution did not stop there but presented chip-off evidence from Raymond's phone, deleted messages showing escalating tension right before Elise left the office. A 3-hour device inactivity gap, the time the phone was placed on silent mode. They stressed that mass deletion of messages that very night indicated intent to conceal, directly contradicting Raymond's 2009 claim of no argument. The prosecution then presented the final forensic phase, exhumation of remains. The forensic archaeologist described the burial pit structure, depth, and disturbed soil consistent with 2009 timing. The CSI specialist described skull fractures and bone wear, indicating the body was placed in a confined space before burial. The DNA expert presented the mtDNA full match with Elise's mother and sister. All were arranged in a seamless forensic chain: motive, conflict, disappearance, nighttime movement, concealment, post-event forensic traces. By the end of the prosecution's presentation, the jury had viewed over 180 slides, 12 reconstructed videos, 4 GPS journey maps, and more than 30 exhibits. The defense entered rebuttal with their only viable strategy, questioning the validity and certainty of digital evidence. Raymond's attorney argued that AI super resolution does not recreate absolute truth but only makes predictions, claiming the silhouette cannot be considered identification evidence. They called an opposing AI expert who testified that video restoration could create visual misinterpretation if source data was too degraded. However, the prosecution countered that the silhouette did not stand alone but aligned with OnStar data, phone timeline, and Raymond's contradictory statements, meaning AI clarified existing evidence rather than creating new. Next, defense attacked OnStar data, claiming the 2008 system was unstable and prone to erroneous pings. The prosecution's OnStar expert responded that engine on/off pings cannot be faked or misrecorded if the device functioned normally, and in 14 years OnStar had no precedent of error in this data type in any legal record. Defense continued to challenge DNA, arguing mtDNA cannot absolutely identify an individual since many in the same maternal line may share haplotypes. The prosecution replied that mtDNA was only part, combined with height, sex, burial location, associated evidence, and forensic timeline, the remains' identity was indisputable. Defense spent considerable time trying to steer toward accident, arguing Raymond may have caused Elise to fall and die unintentionally during argument, then panicked and buried her instead of calling police due to fear. They stressed no direct witness to violence, no blood in the house, and no proof of intentional force. The prosecution responded with what was widely regarded as the trial's strongest segment, a real-time forensic timeline reconstruction. A graphic displayed the entire sequence from 5 p.m. messages, Elise leaving the office, neighbor heard noises, phone silence, garage silhouette, vehicle start at 2:57 a.m., OnStar Katie ping, to return at 4:46 a.m. The prosecution paused at each milestone and asked the jury, if this was an accident, why delete messages? Why move the body 18 miles at 3 a.m.? Why dig a deep pit and conceal it? An accident does not produce a deliberate 2-hour nighttime sequence of actions. Before closing, the prosecution highlighted all contradictions in Raymond's statements. 2009, no argument, never left home. 2023, there was a scuffle, went to garage, later admitting taking Elise to the vacant lot. They concluded, No one panics to the point of digging a 60 centimeters deep grave in the middle of the night, 18 miles from home, unless they know they are guilty. When both sides rested, the jury retired to deliberate. Discussion lasted many hours. Some jurors initially considered thoughtless action, but upon reviewing the forensic timeline, especially OnStar pings and garage video, they concluded Raymond's conduct showed clear intent, not impulsive reaction. Digital evidence, when viewed individually, could be challenged, but combined into an unbroken chain became irrefutable. By day's end, the jury notified they had reached a verdict. In the courtroom, no one breathed heavily as the 12 filed in, sat, and the judge asked the final question. Have you reached a verdict? The foreperson stood, held the folded paper, and read the verdict in dead silence. On the charge of murder not guilty, a small ripple of murmurs passed through the gallery, but the foreperson continued clearly. On the charge of manslaughter, guilty. Then the third, on the charge of tampering with evidence, guilty. And finally, on the charge of abuse of a corpse, guilty. As the last line rang out, the tension built over more than 2 weeks of trial seemed to reach a breaking point. Raymond stared blankly at the table with no visible emotion, while his attorney slightly bowed his head as if accepting an irretrievable reality. The prosecution remained composed, but their eyes showed this was a complex victory. Not complete, but accurately reflecting what they had proven through the forensic chain throughout the trial. The judge moved to sentencing, explaining that the jury's acquittal on murder was not due to lack of evidence that Raymond caused Elise's death, but insufficient basis to establish premeditated intent to kill, the core legal element of murder. However, the judge emphasized that the full forensic evidence, post-death conduct, and indirect admissions and questioning showed Raymond caused Elise's death through dangerous and reckless action, fitting Texas law's definition of manslaughter. Additionally, evidence of message deletion, nighttime vehicle movement, body burial, and 14-year concealment clearly constituted the other 2 charges. Tampering with evidence and abuse of a corpse. After hearing sentencing recommendations from prosecution and mitigation from defense, the judge imposed a combined sentence, 25 years imprisonment, comprising 18 years for manslaughter, 5 years for tampering with evidence, and 2 years for abuse of a corpse. To run concurrently but with no early release, eligibility, under any special policy, due to the severity and prolonged concealment. When the gavel fell declaring the trial concluded, the courtroom fell into a heavier silence than at any point during proceedings. No one celebrated, but no one objected. Elise's family embraced tightly, not in joy, but in the final sense of having an answer, imperfect, not bringing Elise back, but at least closing 14 years of limbo between disappearance and suspicion. Outside in the hallway, Houston media quickly reported, highlighting this as one of the rare cold cases fully solved through modern technology. AI image processing, archived GPS data, advanced DNA testing, and chip-off techniques. The cold case unit representative appeared at the post-trial press conference, presenting the case summary report. They described how all data layers, analog camera, phone logs, OnStar pings, witness statements, bone evidence, were reconnected in a forensic structure, unprecedented in 2009. They stressed that the Elise Morgan case became a textbook example of long-term electronic data retention and reanalysis with later technology, completely altering the outcome of a seemingly closed missing persons case. In the case closing report, the cold case unit listed 3 key factors leading to resolution. 1. Exploitation of overlooked 2009 OnStar archived GPS data. 2. Video restoration via AI super resolution and 3D reconstruction simulation. 3. Chip-off of Raymond's phone devices, enabling reconstruction of motive and events in the 6 hours before Elise's disappearance. Together, they formed a unified evidence chain that overcame all defense challenges and provided a solid legal foundation for conviction. When the case was officially closed, the judge noted in the record that this was an exemplary achievement of modern cold case investigation, a case proving that truth, though buried under soil for over a decade, can still be recovered when technology, determination, and data linkage converge at the right moment. The case's aftershocks spread through the Houston community. Many families with missing persons from the 2000s began requesting case reviews. Media praised advanced technology application in solving crimes, and the local community, especially Elise's neighborhood, held a small memorial to honor her memory. With the final verdict and trial concluded, a long chapter of doubt and loss finally ended. Elise Morgan, after 14 years as a question mark in missing persons files, was at last returned her name, identity, and truth. The case officially closed, but its echo persists in investigative agencies, proof that no cold case ever truly dies, only the technology may not yet be sufficient to reveal the truth. The story of the Elise Morgan case, though originating in 2009, delivers very clear lessons for life in the United States today, especially in an era where personal data, digital technology, and community safety increasingly form the foundation of daily life. Elise vanishing in silence, leaving her purse, keys, and car right in the house, signs her family initially did not know how to interpret, reminds us that when someone with stable routine suddenly goes incommunicado, it should never be treated as normal. The story also reveals hidden risks in simmering conflicted relationships. The chip-off recovered text chain clearly showed Elise and Raymond had serious arguments over finances and trust, yet no one around them recognized it as a sign of instability. This is an important reminder for everyone in the U.S. today. Family conflicts, especially involving financial control or abusive behavior, should never be downplayed or hidden out of not wanting to speak up. At the same time, the story highlights a striking reality of the digital age. Every action leaves a trace. Raymond tried deleting messages, turning off his phone, leaving home at 3 a.m., burying the body in a vacant lot he thought no one knew about, but ultimately all was uncovered thanks to GPS data, AI-restored video, bone forensics, and motion simulation. This is a vital message for American society today. Technology is not just for greater convenience, it is also a tool to protect truth, protect victims, and force criminal behavior to face justice. Finally, the Elise Morgan case reminds us that in a vast country like the United States, where community plays an extremely important role, very small details, like noises neighbors heard, garage lights on for a few seconds, when remembered and shared at the right time, can become puzzle pieces solving a seemingly lost case. This is a reminder for each person to become part of community safety, observe, notice, and be ready to report when something seems wrong. Thank you for following the entire 14-year journey of solving the Elise Morgan case. If you want to continue accompanying deep and authentic investigative stories like this, please remember to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video, where we will continue exploring other cold cases illuminated by the technology and justice of the new era.